Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission for Tuesday, September 24th, 2024. And I'll open the meeting at 7:30. May we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have roll call, please?
I stand here.
Cover the whole flag.
Mr. Carpenter? Here. Mr. Fitzer? Mr. Colbert?
Here.
Mr. Cusero?
Here.
Mr. Nushai?
Here.
Ms. Redmond?
Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Mr. Solomon? Mr. Tinlin?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 4 is approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any problems with this evening's agenda as it stands? All good? Then I'll approve it as it is. And we'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is approval of the regular meeting minutes from September 10th, 2024. That's our last meeting.
I will move to approve the minutes of September 10th, 2024.
Second.
Motion support. There was a correction made in it, and so we are approving the correct version at this point in time. May I have roll call on that, please?
Mr. Colbert?
I wasn't here, but yes.
Mr. Cusero?
Yes.
Mr. Nushai?
Yes.
Ms. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Tinlin?
Yes.
And Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item number 6 is public discussion. It used to say for items not on the agenda. It doesn't say that anymore. It's just public discussion. But to make things easier, I think if you want to discuss something about the application at 220, at 172, or 1238 Anderson Court, could you please let us have our little conversations first? And I guarantee if you raise your hand, I will open it for public at that point before we vote on anything. So does anyone have anything for public right now that they would like to opine on? Seeing none, I will then close public discussion. And we'll move on to agenda item number 7. It's a site plan amendment application for 220 South Main Street. And I believe Mr. Tangeri will start us out with this.
Yeah, I can introduce the topic. So House of Barbecue at 220 South Main Street was approved for the use of a grill outdoors. And the original location of approval was back in the rear corner of the site, not too far from the dumpster enclosure. This request is twofold. One portion of the request is to move it closer to the street, and the other portion of the request is the original approval concluded a stipulation limiting the hours of operation of that grill to 2 nights a week, and they're requesting not to have any limitation on the time during which that can be operated. We've had this topic at a few meetings now. We don't have any new information added to the submission this time. It was postponed last time for further study, essentially. And at this point, we're probably looking to try to bring the issue to a close one way or another. So we have heard at various meetings from some neighbors who say there have been problems with smoke, and we've heard from the applicant as well that the moving of the grill is intended to try to alleviate that problem. Do you have any specific questions or anything else you'd like me to discuss or staff to discuss before you get into your discussion?
So nothing's really changed in the last 2 or 3 meetings that we've had here, right?
Not as far as the submission itself is concerned.
So everything's still the way it was a month ago, aside from we're allowing it to be moved to Main Street.
Right,
closer to the
yeah.
street.
In the meantime, the Planning Commission pending a final decision, said, okay, move it up to the street and let's see what effect that has.
And we haven't gotten many comments whether that's improved the circumstance or not.
I'm going to defer to Nick on that because he's the one who fields the comments.
I haven't gotten anything one way or another.
Nothing one way or the other.
Well, I do believe that the last meeting, it was already moved up front, and they did say that it did alleviate
Slight, I believe.
slightly, but they were nervous to allow the, 24 hours a day, whenever use at that time, because there's not ventilation on the grill. Joe, just to understand, when they came in front of us, because that was 2022, right?
Right, and Nick did include the packet from that meeting
Yeah.
with the original approval in it.
Well, I don't know if it was necessarily in the packet, but they were operating it already, and then they came in for a site plan review because that use we needed a site plan review.
Right.
And at that time, we didn't necessarily have an ordinance for that.
That's correct. It was basically considered to be accessory to the restaurant use.
Okay. And we didn't necessarily have an ordinance that applied to this use
There's
as an
no
accessory.
specific regulations in our ordinance that pertain to the operation of a smoker or a grill outdoors. That's correct.
Okay. And I remember that meeting, they seemed very excited about doing 2 days a week. They felt very confident in the 2 days a week. And I know that there was a little bit of apprehension and nervousness because I was on the planning commission then, about that potential smoke being an issue. So I guess, so they're here to just do a recheck on this, or are they here because they want us to reconsider their application?
Well, at this point, the application in front of you is to move and then change the hours.
Okay.
So that's what you'd be considering tonight, unless they were to verbally change that request at the meeting tonight.
Okay, and
In
we
which
still
case, we would then need it in writing afterward, but.
need it in writing, you said?
Yeah, if they make a verbal change to their request at the meeting, then we have to get that.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
So that we have it for our records. But they could potentially change their request during the meeting.
Okay. So I do think that it's important for us to get an ordinance so that we can have this actually in our ordinances.
Sure, yeah, being prepared for any future advent of another use such as this, I think it would be good to be prepared.
Yeah, so that we know how to go about this potentially if it does come in front of us again.
Well, Joe, I do have a question, because we did get some emails to the planning commission from some of the business owners, and they referenced that ordinance, which I sent an email prior to the meeting. That was a 6518-1502006.
Okay.
And is that ordinance in conflict? I think it talks about the burning of rubbish after midnight, et cetera, but it had a clause, I believe, for barbecuing.
Yeah. So that ordinance states the use of an outdoor grill or barbecue is permitted provided a fire suppression device is nearby when the equipment is in use. And then the next line says the open burning of fires other than outdoor grilling of food is also permitted under the following circumstances, which I think is what you're referring to for the time duration. So I believe that the time duration is regarding a typical bonfire and not an outdoor smoker or cooker.
Okay.
So I don't think that we'd be in conflict there.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's helpful. That's actually helpful, because I think what we struggle with is defining the use, essentially, right? I do agree it's an accessory use. And I do think that without having some type of ordinance in place, then we're struggling to just apply random ordinances to something that it's a specific, and I would even say that there's catering being done there, so I don't know, we want to make sure we include that into a use as well, so that they're able to operate that catering out of there. And I just feel like as a commission, we kind of need to be able to, in my opinion, it's not a question if there's a nuisance of smoke happening. Every other, barbecue grill, smoker grill place, they have it venting out of their roof, and that's intentional. So I believe that there's a reason for you to properly vent them. It's so I just think we might need more time to actually, as a commission, talk this through. But
Right. The one thing about this one is that it is in use already, and as we know, zoning is not retroactive. So
Right.
yeah. So anything that we come up with is going to apply to future uses or changes to this use. So that's just something to keep in mind.
But
as far
if
as
they
that's
keep,
concerned.
so if it's retroactive, and because I just don't feel comfortable at this point allowing for a 24-hour day kind of, it's going to be a lot. So if it's retroactive and we put it in place and then allow them to go 24 hours a day and extend the time that they asked for initially, would they be able to come back in front of us at that point in time for the 24-hour? And would that allow it to?
I mean, if we did put an ordinance in place and they were able to meet the parameters of that ordinance, then they could come back and request a change again. And then, I mean, given that this is a modification to a previous approval, you can look at the elements of that approval separately from each other. There's the location and there's the time frame. So, they're asking to change both of them, and you may be comfortable with one and not the other at this point.
Right, which in the past, we have said we're good with the original site plan in terms of time and days, but we want to keep that, but you can move the use, right, to try to alleviate some of that issue.
Right.
I guess, I'll stop talking for a minute.
Any further questions for Joe?
Well, I'll just have some comments, right? Because, really the only thing that's really happened is you've moved the location of the smoker. So for me, I'm always looking at impactful actions. Is it really an impactful improvement? So again, Nick, I'm going to ask you, have we had any more citizens complaints since our last meeting, either by email or by the ticket system, whatever it may be? Because that's my measurement, right? We've moved it. That's the only thing we've done. Was it impactful?
I believe the one formal complaint that we did receive was through the ticket system that said the smoker was being used outside of those 2 days a week once, and then when we went to go inspect that property, it was no longer in use. And in order for us to issue any type of enforcement violation, we'd have to see the act occurring. And so myself and staff have been routinely driving by and haven't seen it being used outside of that time. I can't tell you with 100% confidence that that's the case, but in my experience, we have not seen it being used.
Okay.
Well, and I think it's important too that when we're potentially amending or changing this, that the original one did say that they wanted to be able to take it off site after it was used, and that it was not going to be at the site. So I do think that's something that maybe we haven't addressed in the past that we do, when deciding today, something we should address as well.
Okay, any questions for the applicant? Would the applicant like to take the mic and?
Hello, my name is Collier,
Good evening.
owner of House of Barbecue. Good afternoon. I believe that you guys think that I'm going to be just smoking meat 24 hours a day. And that's not the case. The reason for me coming in front of you guys to amend that was to grow my business. If one of you guys were to come to me and say, hey, I have an event Saturday, but it's Friday. Any way you can do this event for me? I'm not able to do that now. I have to turn people away. That's the purpose of me being able to cook whenever I need to. I'm not trying to add or bring any more smoke or smell to anyone's homes or whatever. I'm just trying to operate my business in a safe, very sustainable way. I tried to show you guys video. No one has seen the video of the actual smoking, which dies down after being lit for 1 hour. I have not been operating, period, because it's been slow. So I haven't been operating on my days. I did smoke Sunday and Wednesday, but nothing since then. And Nick told me to refer to the old agenda and the approval, and I did. We originally asked you guys to smoke Thursdays to sustain throughout the weekend, and we said that Sunday would sustain us throughout the week. You guys then in turn told us to smoke Sundays and Wednesdays to sustain us throughout the week. At that time, so that people know, I was paying rent and I did not have any income coming in. I had to accept that in order to get open, because you guys held me up from being open. I had an original open date of February and was pushed back because of the whole cooking situation. I almost went bankrupt. You know, I had to accept whatever you guys had, whatever was told to me that you guys would approve. Going forward, no one knew how COVID would be. It's been hard getting staff, which all of you guys, if you have other jobs, know. Nobody wants to work, so the work falls completely on me. I am in the restaurant from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. on weekends, on weekdays, and from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. on weekends. When I have to cook at 10 p.m. till 9 or 8 a.m. in the morning, I've been there almost 24 hours. It's really destroying me. It's destroying my family. I get no time with my family, but I have to do it to sustain my business. All I'm asking is the freedom to be able to cook just like every other restaurant when it's needed. I'm not asking for anything extra. I'm asking for the basic essentials that every restaurant around here does. Like I said, I appreciate you guys. That's all I got to say.
One of the big problems, the difference between your restaurant and other restaurants is the other restaurants do all their cooking indoors.
Correct.
And they have chimneys that raise their smoke and everything else up high. You don't have that. You can't operate your thing indoors. So it's a matter of, the problem is the smoke that is starting up. And I agree with you, not so much when you're actually running it, but when you fire that thing up, it makes quite a bit of smoke. Mm-hmm. Have you looked into anything? Have you come up with any way of remediating that, like adding a chimney to it, adding a chimney to your building that you could attach to your stacks?
Anything involving that, yes, we looked into it. That would be a fire code hazard. That equipment has to be at least 10 feet away from all structures. We would have to put it literally side by side to the building in order to add a stack going up and put it underneath it because of the way that the actual chimney stacks are built. Those chimney stacks are also certified and licensed and regulated to go all over Michigan. I pay extra money just to do that. I'm not violating any ordinance that is anywhere in Michigan. They are built and made to spec. Adding stacks would cut. If I permanently add a stack to that, going up higher, then they wouldn't be able to move mobilely.
Yeah, you couldn't go on the road.
I could not go on the road because it'd be a hazard.
Yeah.
Somebody could get really injured.
Okay. Okay, I get that now.
Yes.
I asked you once before, is there a reason, you're cooking this meat at the Clawson location, and you've done Arts Beats in Eastern Rye Oak.
Yes.
So you cooked the meat here and you took it there.
No, I cook on the road. I put it on here and I go there with the meat.
While you're driving, this thing is cooking away?
Yes.
But you started up here.
Yes.
Okay, so we get the brunt of the smoke then. We get the initial startup smoke then, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the problem we have here is the smoke.
Now, one more thing with that.
Sure.
The main issue with when the startup was happening, I had the original grill in the shop. So I got the smaller grill license. That grill does not have gas hooked to it to initially start the fire. Now there's no startup smoke at all, because I have the original grill back, and gas is used to light that up. The reason for it going in the shop was so that it didn't have any type of issue as far as like catching on fire and stuff. Certain things that the grill is older had to be remodified. Now that when I fire the grill up, there is no initial smoke that comes off of it like that I use paper to light.
So you're starting with propane now and not using the paper?
Correct.
Well, I can see where that would cut some of the smoke
Yes,
down.
it cuts it down more than 75%.
You're looking to extend your hours, and I find it still a problem with that. When you came in, it was you that set your original hours, 2 dates that you were going to operate.
Well, I was coached on that.
And I understand you were in new business starting out,
Yeah.
and it made sense. And I understand business grows and you want to be able to cook more. However, there's 4 dates on here that people were complaining about the smoke and that you were cooking outside of the approved hours. So
If you look at the original, what we had set forward for you guys with the amendment or whatever, in that it said that we would cook on Thursdays and Sundays. Also to be allowed during special occasions to cook. You guys approved it, you know. Nobody said that would be taken out. It was approved.
is there no way that you can take this grill, move it someplace, cook the meat, and then bring the cooked meat to your restaurant?
That the
can't
health
cook-
department would not allow.
You can't cook it anyplace else.
They would not allow that.
I don't understand how they allow it to be cooked while you're driving down the road with it and you can't.
I have no idea. If I could, I would. That's the health department. That's a whole nother issue.
Has anybody from the city looked into the health department, Nick or anybody, or have we checked what their ordinances are? That's something we're gonna have to look into then, because I like your business. I think you're a great addition to the city of Clawson. You're winning all kinds of awards. You have great food going. Just that at this point, until we get the smoke problem fixed, I think the neighbors are gonna continue to complain, and we gotta find some way around this. Either find a way to cook it off-site or put some type of vending system onto it. That's the only alternative I can see for it. So that's,
So I did reach out to a couple, one, I also tried to find, I realized that I believe 100% that they're probably registered with the state of Michigan and that they're compliant on things, but when they're being mobile, they're used as a mobile unit, which is much different than a fixed unit, which is essentially, I know that you fluctuate between both. So like a mobile unit, I'm sure they're looking for other criteria than does it bother a neighbor, right? Or like how much smoke is ambient in the air just through buildup of, a 24-hour smoking. I tried to go to even Texas, because I know it kind of is a Texas thing, and look for ordinances there, because I couldn't find anything in Michigan that has this as a outdoor kitchen accessory use. And when I looked in Texas, they do require pavilions, enclosements. They gave specific, here's the cart with the enclosed, and then you're able to take it in and out of there. Of course, we're not say you have to get one of these.
That's a I would have to buy a whole.
Yeah, I'm not saying, but the only ordinances that I could find for an outdoor kitchen smoker does have, from what I could tell, the health department does want you covered while cooking, but I'm not the health department, so I'm
No.
staying in my lane here,
No,
so
I'm
I don't
sorry.
know.
No,
Yep.
the grills can never be covered while cooking.
Well,
period.
I do think that there is a safe distance that they impose in other places where they do ask for a pavilion. And the pavilion likely does have a ventilation in it, and that probably alleviates. I'm not an engineer. I don't claim to be one.
No, I didn't.
But,
No, I'm not saying that.
And-
I'm just saying that they have no ventilation on there, and you cannot cover those grills. Period. The fire marshals alone will let you know that can't happen. When we do all events, the tents have to be off to the side, and the grill have to be by itself. I have to operate them grills in rain, sleet, and snow, no matter what. They cannot be covered.
So there's no concern about debris coming into the food when it's raining or anything?
No, there's chimneys that they close and open.
Yeah.
Nothing goes inside of them.
Yeah, and I trust that I'm not an expert in that,
No,
so I totally,
got
I'm
you.
not trying to be one, but
I got you.
it's hard for us when we don't have an ordinance to really kind of wrap our heads around without looking to a different ordinance, and really, that was all I could find. So, I do think that we need to be able to fully understand this further. Of course, I don't think that you're able, obviously you can't take the grills inside, but I was able to find other establishments that do a smoking inside with wood burning. There's one in Southfield that my parents have gone to before, and but I know that might be not costs.
Right. That was probably built in to the establishment prior to them opening.
I don't think it was, because it's on a strip mall, but either way, I'm sure it's expensive to convert. I
Right.
don't know.
It's and you have to
Yeah.
have the space for it. That space is too small for that. Like the kitchen isn't even large enough for that. I would probably have to do just carry out and close the whole kitchen.
I believe that's
And the
actually
whole
what they ended up doing
restaurant.
there, but they also
Just-
opened during COVID.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not here to I'm not here to decide what your business is gonna be, but again, I do believe we all really want you to be successful, and I'm really happy you are. But we do have to somehow put our heads around how we can make this work for everybody, because I want you to be able to cook every single day at your freedom. I know you're not trying to
Yeah,
do it 24/7, but
yeah.
at your will, I want that to happen. But I think we need a full understanding of how that might work and how we can work together to bring that to fruition. Yeah. I don't know.
I just have a quick question. I always look for middle ground, right? So you're essentially asking for use as needed. You made two improvements, right? The location change, and then the other mitigation was now using that smoker with the gas start.
Right.
What would be a middle ground for you instead of? I think that's what the commission's struggling with, is just that unlimited use as needed versus what would be a middle ground, a different frequency that would be acceptable for your business to be successful.
Just more than 2 days, Anything would be better, and also, like I said, let's take Thanksgiving for example. Thanksgiving, I probably have to do 75 to 100 turkeys, whole turkeys. There's no way I would be able to get that done. And these people, families, plus I have a restaurant open for veterans and stuff, people that don't have families to come in. So, I just need that freedom to be able to cook when I need to. That's all. Majority of it is not going to be extra cooking. I'm not here to cook a bunch of meat and stock up the refrigerators. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to provide people with fresh, quality food and cook just as needed. Today, someone called me to cater an event on Saturday. Today, they called me. They want 75 sliders, pulled pork, and 75 chicken sliders, plus mac and cheese and coleslaw and stuff. There is no way I can pull that off because, first off, he hasn't even left at the deposit, but if he calls me tomorrow, how am I going to finish that? I have to literally push myself to even get anything done, because if I sell everything that I have in my fridge is for the restaurant, now the people that come to see me from all over Michigan, and we have a petition to show you guys from everywhere. So what am I to do? Turn them away because I had to do a catering event and I can't cook extra food? You know what I'm saying? Now, if I had a Thursday or Friday to be able to cook, now I have flexibility. You know what I'm saying? And that comes with, growth. But at this point now, I have to turn people away. And that's money out of my pocket and money out of Clausen's pocket as well, because, like I said, I live here. I know what the value of integrating money and keeping it circulating in the community, how it builds. I'm not from this community, but I'm doing that here. I have Sabbath coffee in my restaurant. I shop here. I go to the
Main Street Rocks?
Main Street Rock. I take my family. I shop at the jeweler. She got jewelry on that I buy from them. I dine at all these places, Noble Fish, you name it, Sokai's. I'm just putting the money back into the community.
I get your point. We're not trying to change. We don't want to chase you out of town. We want to keep you in here. We want to work with you, but you can have to see it from our point of
I
view.
definitely do. I definitely
You
do.
started the business in what,
2020, I got the place in 2021, but 2022.
In 2022, 2023, we didn't have any complaints. Nobody was bothered at all.
Right.
Everything was going fine.
Yes.
It's when you started cooking additional hours and causing more smoke, that's what caused the problem. So why should we now give you unlimited cooking if that's what's causing the problem is excess of smoke? I agree with your propane thing.
That's what I was going to say. That's what caused the problem. I had to put the grill in the shop. The grill was in the shop for a year. So when I pulled that newer grill out from the storage facility, it had to be lit by paper. There was no propane running on. So that is what caused the problem.
So how long
I don't have that. I don't have to use that anymore.
How long have you been cooking using the propane methods to start it?
It's been probably about this month because I thought that grill would be, emit less smoke because it was smaller. That's not the case. So initially I got the call from the neighbors. I believe it was on a holiday or something. You guys wasn't in the office. And I took the initiative to move the grill. That was what me and the neighbors came up with. They asked me, could I do it to get them a break? I said, no problem. You guys were not here. I didn't want you guys coming back, getting a flood of phone calls, flood of emails. And I took it upon myself to move it up there to see how it did. They initially told me, thank you very much. It really is helping. You guys came back. You guys somebody saw that I had it up there. They came in, told me either I move it back or I get ticketed, and I explained to them what the situation is. They told me it didn't matter. What was approved was what was approved. So I moved it back.
That happens quite often around town. People do things without approval and then seek approval after the fact. So you knew you were doing the right thing, but I see a reason for doing it. Yes.
So after that, I received a phone call. They asked me why did I move it back. I explained to them why. They didn't like that. So that's where we are today, And I initially was like, hey, when Nick came and seen me, I said, what can I do to move this grill up here? And I told him, my business is increased. How can I cook more? He said, you have to do a site plan, to re-amend the site plan. I initially was like, okay, no problem. I'll do that. In my mind, I was helping the neighbors, because originally they said it was great. I put up the $1,300 to come in front of you guys, and, lo and behold, I didn't think that what happened was going to happen.
But you see the dilemma that we're in.
Yeah, definitely.
If we give you unlimited hours, residents are going to be upset by that.
Yeah.
They'll be affected. And I do think that there is something to the smoke building in, just over time, and especially, like we talked about this before, right? There's a fence. It probably lingers down in there and doesn't necessarily get out. And it's not your doing. It's just by way of a smoker operating and the airflow. I thought that you mentioned before on a meeting that you were okay with the bigger grill 2 nights a week. Is that something that during, I believe it was like the July meeting, that you mentioned that 2 nights a week is totally fine as long as you can use your bigger grill?
Yeah, but I still would need more than 10 hours to smoke.
More than
that's
10
the big
hours.
dilemma, too. The 10 hours to smoke, my briskets take 16 to 24 hours to smoke. So 10 hours, I have to stop cooking the briskets and then come back on Sunday and finish the briskets. That's not healthy at all.
Yeah,
Period.
and I don't know your initial conversation but I certainly didn't believe that we, when you came in front of us the very first time in 2022, that we said, we offered up a 2-day thing. From my understanding, I thought it was presented to us as, hey, we need 2 days. That's all I remember, I don't know if that's your wife, but I remember talking with her, and I get you've grown, and I'm happy for your success. And so you didn't do briskets back then, though, when you asked for the original 10 hours?
I was doing briskets back then. I didn't ask for them 10 hours. I didn't know them were the hours that were being presented to you guys, because I would have told you 10 hours would not be enough, sufficient time to cook my briskets. That's barely enough time to cook my pork butts. So, because I do a 225 smoke, and is slow and low. You cannot rush it because the tendons in the meat will seize up. You know, I mean, like I said, we were so far behind because of this situation. I was held off for an extra 3 months. I was paying rent since November all the way till we finally got approved. That almost broke me because I did the whole build out for the restaurant. Majority of it was me being there because COVID was going. My whole family had COVID. I'm the only person who did not catch COVID. So I was there all day, every day, making sure everything was set and ready to go. She did the initial writing, and she may have made a mistake and put the time that was on there, but neither here or said that it was done. You know, I never even looked back at the site plan. All I knew was I had Wednesdays and Sundays to cook. I was cooking Wednesday morning, cutting the grill off Thursday afternoon. Period. There was never a 10 to 8 cooking. Period. Never.
Right.
I've never abided by that. And I'm gonna tell you that right now. You know, my mistake. I should have did my own homework. But also, if you look at that agreement, it says that if we have certain events that we needed to cook further, we had that liability to cook for or able to cook for. It says that right there in the plan.
And it was in what you asked for, or?
That's what we asked for, and you
Because I
guys
did
approved.
rewatch that meeting in it, and I don't think it was intentional at all, but whenever who made the motion, they did not include that in the motion of approval.
Right.
I know they specified certain criteria in that motion. I don't remember that being part of the original site plan,
It's
that
what
as
he-
needed,
like
but
said,
I
he's-
trust that you,
He sent it to me. It blew my mind because then it showed that I was nowhere in the wrong because I was cooking only as needed. You
Well,
know,
instead of just talking about this, Nick, can we just have
Yeah.
a fact check on that?
Yeah.
So we
You
have
can
an
pull it
actual
up.
document on city records, what's the site plan that we approved by the commission? Just so we don't go back and forth on this.
Yeah, so I did share the planning commission packet from that April meeting with Collier last week, just to refresh him on what was previously approved. And so that document that's being referred to was submitted as part of their application go in front of the planning commission. And they do indicate the 2 days a week from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. on here. And then there is number 6 on that document. I believe it's page 36 of your packet if you want to take a look. It does say the anticipated hours of cooking will be from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. to limit cooking smells during the day unless there is an event which requires daytime cooking. But then as Commissioner Redmond was referring to, the motion that was made by the Planning Commission didn't indicate that. They indicated that the smoking can be used, the smoker can be used 2 days a week. And that's the motion that the Planning Commission approved at the time.
or if you go to the document and look at what it approved, it says the whole plan is approved except for the 2 days that they changed. It doesn't say that it doesn't approve. It says everything that we put up there, it says it was approved.
The motion states, the site plan review for 220 South Main Street House Barbecue be approved with conditions that there are markings for the location of the grill, the materials to cover the grill meet fire code requirements, the grill is located 10 feet from other buildings and structures, and that the portable outdoor smoker is delivered and used on Wednesdays and Sundays with removal directly after use. And so that motion didn't say, the plan is approved as presented, which I know is something that we typically use in this body. It indicates just those 2 days a week.
Yeah, I recall I was on the commission at that point in time too, and I think I was the one that requested putting markings on the actual pavement, because you said you're going to move this thing in and out, and I want to make sure you keep parking in the same spot. I don't believe any markings were ever painted on the...
Yes, they were.
Oh,
I painted them pink. I definitely did that.
Oh, I didn't see the markings when I was there last time.
Well, we just repaved the whole parking lot.
Okay.
There's no lines or nothing on the parking lot
Okay,
right
if you're
now.
going to move the grill, then you're not going to paint it there, you're going to paint them up in front then where you're going to park it. So it always remains in the same spot, so we know it's 10 feet away from combustible materials.
Correct.
Okay.
So so you're asking, I want to be sure I'm understanding, you want the bigger grill?
Yes.
So is the smaller grill still is it on the site? I don't know.
Yes.
It is,
Yes.
but you'll only be using the bigger grill and the smaller grill is just there to take to a festival or something?
Yes.
Or, and you're looking for anything more than 2 days a week?
Yes.
Okay. Can I just ask
Oh,
one
no,
more?
sorry.
Is your larger grill the one that was identified with the dimensions on the first site plan?
Yes, it was.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Sorry, go ahead.
And does that bigger grill have the propane start as well in it?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we're doing whatever we can to alleviate the problem. We're moving the grill and you're starting it with propane instead of paper, so that, we're trying that, but I don't know if that's gonna be successful. That's why I'm very leery of extending your hours, and we're gonna have more of the same problem. It's a tough one to get past here. I think you can see our point too. You know, I understand you got a business going, you wanna produce more.
Yeah, so how would a 24-hour work? Because if we did, like, what is your ideal for a 24-hour brisket? Is it from
It would
like,
be that morning, which, let's say, if I started on Wednesday morning,
Mm-hmm.
I will pull it Thursday in the morning, if not, probably 8 in the morning to maybe 9 at the most. It depends on the
on the
weather.
next day? Like
Yeah.
Wednesday from 8 in the morning to like Thursday at 9 in the morning-ish
Yes,
is what you're,
yes, something
okay,
like that, yes.
okay.
So you're thinking of allowing to have expanded hours on those 2 days?
Oh, are you,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry, I thought you were talking to him. What?
No, because, I'm trying to find a middle ground, right?
Yeah,
So-
yeah, yeah.
So you may be recommending those 2 days, but we just expand the hour so we can do the true cooking?
Well, yeah, I mean, I do think I guess there must have been a miscommunication because I can't go back to that and do it. But, you know, those 2 days a week, if he needs to have the briskets cooked, I do think that's fair. Of course, I'm not making this decision right now.
No.
I know we have to open public comment, but just to try to, get a middle ground and see what works for you and what works for neighbors. And if we can get there without, you know, tonight, that'd be amazing. I'd consider that a win, yeah.
Any further questions for Collier?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you made some improvements with the equipment, which I think that's what we were really focused on in the previous meetings. If we were to expand the time frame, not necessarily the days, but the time frame to 24 hours, 2 days at 24 hours, and it works, could the applicant come back and request an expansion of that as well, like after?
Sure, you can always ask for an
Yeah.
amended site plan, sure.
So, I mean, I think the biggest complaint from the neighbors was that initial startup. And if you solve that problem, maybe we talk about expanding those hours and taking it from there, really. Just my thought on it.
Thank you, Collier. At this point, I'll open for public discussion. Sure.
To add
but
for the,
You have to come to the microphone
Sorry.
and so that people at home can hear you.
Hi, everyone. Just to clarify for the original site plan hours, there were so many meetings and so many things going on during that time. We were grateful to receive a lot of help from Joan in just helping with starting a new business and trying to figure out ground. When the grill first came into the picture, there was a huge shock that it was going to be used. So at that time, the money and effort that we've already put into the restaurant could have just at that point vanished. So we did, through communication back and forth through emails, which I'm sure I can pull, came to a very minimal, where it was almost like taking all the bread away and then giving a crumb for those overnight hours. And the timing was picked specifically. I remember, I think the exact words were before people wake up for work. So that's where those came from. But it was at the time a very kind of backed into a corner situation. I'm sure it was for the best. It was something obviously that hasn't been dealt with before with Clausen. And I hope moving forward, there'll be something, an ordinance that's put into place so that another restaurant wants to come in and we know what to do. And I understand that there are some locations in Texas that do have the coverings. I'll further look into that because I, like you, did search for other
Yeah.
ordinances all over. I'm like, where does this exist?
Yeah.
So I do apologize if there was any undercooking time that was written on the original site plan, but we were excited to get something. We're really just eager young business owners in conception. Now we're 3-year-olds, so we're asking for some more. But thank you very much for everything. And I think there's a point that Chef Collier we really need to instill that there are the restrictive grilling to just 2 days a week, even if it's 24 hours, does not allow chef the freedom to take an event like a big catering job that really can sustain the restaurant, because on slower days when no one's coming in or it's very slow, we still have to pay a huge overhead and in rent. So in the decision, if that is something that's going to be brought up, I think we should make if that is the option for 24 hours twice a day, there needs to be a set in stone that, okay, this has worked for this long, and we can come back again and adjourn in 2 months. But in addition to that, there has to be something that because I know if Monday comes around and there's a catering job for pulled pork for 200 people and we can't do it, that really affects it. Just affects morality. It affects everything. So that would be something I'd ask for, is that if there's a catering, whether it's a permissional or known, maybe it's like a burning ordinance or something of that nature, but he has to be able to have those. Maybe it's 3 days a week. Maybe we approve 2 days a week for 24 hours for the next 2 months, and then see how that works, with in addition to allowing up to 3 days a week in addition to that. So that's still cutting down from the original unlimited 24 hours to 5 days a week, but the 3 days a week can only be used as needed. So, maybe he can present and say, we can write an email every day and say that we're out of, the restaurant's out of this protein and we need to fire this grill up on this day, or, with something else.
So you're kind of proposing another additional day for a flex day, right?
I would
Whether it's
say
a Friday or
up
Saturday?
to, yes, sir, yes, Mr. Tillen, up to 3 flex days, I would say, just to be safe for House of Barbecue. So I can write the right things in the email. But yes, up to a few flex days would be great.
Leaving it at 2 days, I think, gives the neighborhood somewhat of a breather. They're not getting smoked every day. And I agree the smoke's going to be less now with the propane as it was for the other one.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's the whole point, is we don't want smoke 24 hours a day, every day of the week. So these people won't be able to use their backyards.
Yeah.
Until we get rid of this smoke. Let's try it for a while and see if the propane makes a change. I would think it would. I would assume it would.
I can testify. I've taken numerous videos, and it absolutely helps. I mean, tremendously. It is over a 70% difference in the smoke, quote, plumes that come out.
Yeah, I think that and moving it to.
It's dramatic. It really is. But placing the grill in, I know that there was talk. I just want to, not smash the idea, but kind of get it out of everyone's mind. Moving the grill in the patio in front
it's not feasible.
It's just absolutely not feasible. But if we do the 24 hours a day, there would have to be at least 2 flex days. I could say we did 4 days out of the week, that possibly, but with some sort of permission to say, like, okay, we have a catering job and chef needs to cook tonight. He needs to fire up the grill. It could have been fired up at 5 o'clock and done cooking.
So now you want 2 flex days? Is that right? Is that what you're saying? 2 flex days or 1 flex? I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
I would say like 3 flex days, but 2 flex days.
Then you're at full.
I know, but we'll say 2 flex days. 2 flex days with 2 grilling days. And then a re-meeting in 2 months.
But if it's on the smoker for 24, yeah, okay. Would your preference be to continue as is for right now while you're slow, let the commissioners work on an ordinance so that you can have the freedom to just full bars go at it to where everybody feels comfortable? Or like, do you have a preference, or do a 3-day? I don't feel comfortable with the 4-day.
That's okay. I understand.
But because essentially you're almost every day then with the 24-hour. But do you have a preference?
Well, I appreciate you asking that, and I can foresee that. Just you're saying that no matter what, there's always going to be some citizen complaint in the future, and I think that having some form of believe me, I think Chef Collier, we should be able to cook all the time, but if this is, perception is reality for a lot of things, and if we can put some stipulations in order to make everybody comfortable and come to some sort of middle ground where there are some flex days. I think that's the main thing, is that when Collier is in a bind and we don't have any more of a protein or something at the restaurant and it's selling out, it's a really hard thing. And what he does, he has to stay at the restaurant those 2 nights a week. I mean, stay there and tend fire and like sit in front of the TV. I'm worried about the guy, you
For
know?
sure, yeah.
So
I've seen him there. I
Yeah.
don't know how he's done it,
he
sustained
does
it for
it
so long.
in the
Yeah.
rain and the snow. So if there's something that can have some sort of, some flex days, whatever is agreed upon with everyone, in addition to those 24 hours, but during those flex days, we can have some sort of, I hate to say permission, but I know we've asked for forgiveness before permission a couple of times, so now we can ask for permission, and we can all come to something, and then re-adjourn again in 2 months.
Yeah,
But he would cook the brisket, I'm sorry, add one thing.
Oh, yeah.
He would cook the brisket on the 24-hour days. So unless if he needed to use the flex days, I'm sure that there wouldn't be another 24-hour, he wouldn't be using those as 24-hour flex days.
I would love nothing more than to, personally, not know what days you have to
I
cook
know.
and what days you don't have to. And
I
I'm
know.
sure, I can't speak for the neighbors, but I'm pretty sure they don't want to have to write down
know.
on their calendar. And like, I want you to have flexibility. That's
Thank
why
you.
I really feel strong about being able to put something together. And, you know, you're welcome to attend. And if you find the ordinances and bring them up, I would
will.
love that.
I
kind of
will, I
thing.
absolutely will.
But that's my personal prerogative is to be able to put something there. But thanks, it's helpful to know what you prefer.
Well, in addition, if that is the full conclusion, that the only answer to this is House of Barbecue can only cook unlimited, but there has to be something covering it, then we will have to. I mean, the restaurant won't be able to sustain an economic, output like that. We don't have enough liquid cash right now to be able to do that. So there would have to be if the community really wants it, we can all come together and make something happen. But
Well, it seems like you have a lot of support,
yeah,
too.
thank you. I know I have over 40 signatures of local Clausen residents and rural residents that approve of and live very close to the restaurant and do feel that the smoke moving or the smoker moving with the larger smoker in the front of the building does play a big part in helping. But that's it. Thank you very much for listening. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from public wishing to opine? You have to come to the microphone, please.
Can I stay here and say it?
If you speak real loud.
I have a bad back. I have a business in Clausen. I have a wonderful landlord, the same landlord that Chef Collier has. And when he moved in, my business is Clausen Antiques. Thank you. Clausen Antiques, etc. I'm at 118 South Main. I've been there 10 years. And this restaurant is the best thing that's happened to Clausen. And people come in, they say, "Oh, where are you from?" And I mean, we are a city that I live in Royal Oak, and I like your meetings much better than Royal Oak, to be honest. It's friendly.
Thank you.
You're in the right place to say that.
It's true.
Thank you. We'll take that.
But I have to say, people say, I said, "Oh, where are you from?" I mean, we're a destination place, not only for antiques, but we are for food. And they say, "Well, what's your favorite restaurant?" And I always say, "Well, you don't have to say that I said anything, but it's House of Barbecue." And if anybody smelled smoke, it would be us. And it smells delicious. I have to say that. And another thing is that my customers, when they go there and then they come back to my store, because it's such a great store, and I have great people in that store, and they say, "I'm coming back and I'm bringing my friends." And so I would hate for him to be told, "You can't take that job." And you know when he talks about the turkeys, guess who ordered their Thanksgiving dinner there? Me. I mean, it is superb. And I just think that I hope that you can come to some ground. And I can see that you're trying, and which is good, and that they're trying. but it's really terrific. One day, what day did we have that we had 1 million people in Clausen? He delivered my food to me at the shop. I couldn't move it, but we were so busy. I said, Chef, could you deliver it? He goes, sure. This is the hardest working man I've ever met. And I would hate for him, another city to get him, because he's that food. How many of you in this room have ever eaten there? Okay, those of you that haven't, try it. Try it. That's all I can say. Okay?
Thank you for your endorsement.
I stand.
Anyone else in public, please?
I have one question, comment.
Okay.
And I think Nick addressed it earlier.
Can you give us your name and address, please?
My name is Todd Heft.
Clausen?
I work in Clausen. I live in Roseville.
Okay.
Since you changed the smoker to the propane instead of the fire start, has there been any official or unofficial complaints about the smoke? Because that seems what the initial complaint was. If there hasn't been any since then, I'm just wondering, has there been any since
That's not that I'm
he's
aware of.
changed
That's-
it to the newer smoking style?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. That's what I'm hoping, that
That's
we're going
my
to run
only
it that
question.
way for a while, and hopefully the smoke will be livable with people.
I do think that the neighbors have, actually, I don't want to speak for them, but I do know from the last 2 meetings that they've been here, that they were just asking for the 2 days that they originally asked, like, the neighbors wanted, they were okay with the 2 days. They can then know what days they can go in their backyard, and I'm just quoting what they've said at meetings in the past. They'll make do with that, but I don't think that it was alleviated in a way that they felt like they can live with 24/7. That was my impression, not necessarily. I actually do think that may have been said, but so I don't necessarily think that the neighbors were trying to call and complain of smoke or anything like that during the days that he was allowed to cook, because they said, you know what, this was an allowed use. We can kind of deal with that. That was my impression anyway, just to put clarity there.
Anyone else in public wishing to opine on this issue?
Hi, my name is Lynn Musselwhite. I work in Clausen and live in Royal Oak. One thing I haven't heard discussed tonight is the variability of the weather. I lived in Georgia. I lived next door for 10 years to a gentleman that appeared on Barbecue Pit Masters, and I know that it changes from one day to the next. And that I just think, there's no way you can put an ordinance on the weather. I think that should be taken into consideration.
We'll consider it. Thanks for throwing
Thank
another
you.
wrench in the
Only on sunny days. Just kidding.
Okay, anyone else in public?
How you doing? I'm Patrick. I live in White Lake, but I own a business down in Troy here in Maple, and I've been. I wasn't out that long ago at Collier. We were out there for a while, and I know the neighbor he's talking about, or know where they live, and they live on the east side. So I deal a lot with the weather. So they live on the east side of the wall. So most of your winds come from the southwest, about 90% of the time. There's no way you're going to get smoke that's even going to go that far or affect somebody 4 houses down over a wall and be, there's just no way at all. And I mean, it's just nature, He's one hell of a guy, and he does everything to try to appease. Even we were talking about the chimney stack, about putting on a chimney, because we did a lot of work to open up that store, and we talked about putting up chimney stack, but we talked about like there's no way in hell we can do it, because if you put a chimney stack up there to even get above the roof line, you can't move it. There's just no way.
I'm not an engineer, but there is such thing as flexible tubings that
You could probably take it on and off, but then it goes into regulations about what the state allows and stuff
obviously,
like that.
it'd have to be inspected and approved.
Yeah, exactly. But as we're standing there with no smoke coming out of his grill, I'm looking at Woodburn, whatever the barbecue place across.
Woodpile?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that place. And there's smoke blowing out of there like crazy. And you can literally just watch which way the wind's blowing. You know, it's blowing this way, you know, to your northeast. And I mean, I know you're the whole time talking about smoke, but like I said, the whole time I was there, you know, past however many months, I go there all the time, you know, go by there all the time because I'm, you know, like I said, my office right down the road. So, you know, never see hardly anything out of there.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in public? Oh, we get two.
Shawnee Conniff, West Tacoma. You know, I just want to say my smoke detector went off inside on my first floor at some point. That's what started all of this issue. My smoke detector went off inside my home. That's how much smoke. That's what started all of this. Okay, I think moving the smoker has made a huge difference. We didn't know, this is the first that we've heard of the other grill. We were told that the large grill went away because we were making complaints directly to him. So if it's been in the shop and you were using the small one, is that why you went to the small one? Because it was actually in the shop?
Yeah.
Okay, not because we were making.
And you see moving it as an improvement as far as you're concerned?
I think there's been a great improvement,
Okay,
I think, with moving it.
So we're getting there, okay.
But I'm just, the small one is there. There's been flexibility all along because he hasn't been following the site plan. I mean, you guys know that.
Right.
He's aware of that. When you look through the videos, there's multiple times when he just said it a little while ago. So that's been the frustration. That's been the hard part. To say that there's no smoke in my yard actually it angers me because this is somebody who doesn't even live here. I grew up in a restaurant. My grandpa, my uncles, and my dad owned all of the Harvest Table restaurants. I've worked in a restaurant. It's the hardest work there is. I agree with you. You're probably working yourself mad. I understand that. That's not it. I want you to be successful. That's never been the issue. The smoke made my smoke detector go off. That's been the problem. It's been pervasive. You guys have heard me. I don't have to reiterate this. Has it been better? Yes. Do I think if you give him carte blanche, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. This is smoke. It's not this, I don't smell lamb. I don't smell anything. We used to smell Dewey Venti. It smelled delicious. I smell other restaurants. I smell bacon from from Frittata, from the other breakfast place, from Charlie's. The smell is not what I'm here for. It's the actual smoke. That is what the problem is. You know, this is an environmental thing. This is a health thing. And if it's better, I will admit that. I just don't know. I would say the last couple weeks have been better. I don't know what anybody else would say. I didn't know that it had changed, so we've been bracing ourselves because it's been that bad. And anybody that doesn't say it's bad, or when you own a business somewhere else, it's not the same. It's not apples to apples. The other smoker is inside. It's not an outdoor smoker. The fire marshal said that the last time we were here in August. He said as much. It's not apples to apples. So, I mean, I'm willing to. This isn't about. It's about the smoke.
Can you? How are you feeling about the negotiations so far with, in terms of the 2 days? I mean, not saying, I would just like to get your impression of a flex day because it's gotten better. Do you feel comfortable with a flex day? Not carte blanche, as you said, but maybe incorporating a flex day into that and allowing them to do their briskets.
Sure. I don't know how they were, so it's kind of a testament to the fact that he hasn't ever followed it. If he needs 24 hours, he was never given 24 hours, right? And I think I'm a little gun shy because, you know, you've asked for an inch and taken a mile each time. I mean, you have to admit that. That every time we've allowed something, it seems like, or, you know, it's just been ridiculous. This has just been ridiculous. I would be willing to take the next 30 or 60 days to look at it. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on that, but it has been better. The move up front, way better. I will say that. I think that's a huge improvement. I think that the little smoker, I would appreciate it if that just went away, because the little smoker is where all the smoke was coming from. He had said previously that the big smoker, at the last meeting, he said, but when you asked him if he could do the 2 nights a week, sir, and he said, yes, I'm fine with that, but I have to use the larger grill, and it's gonna cause more smoke. So that's been a change from the last meeting that we didn't know about.
Right.
So I think that's wonderful. I mean, it seems like a huge improvement. I don't think he's been using the grill as often as he did the rest of the summer. And that's where my problem has been, from not being able to use my own yard, as you guys well know. So, I mean, I would be willing to try something, but again, giving him, you know, when we had our meeting on August 27th, he lit up the small smoker on the 29th in the morning. It was between like 8:30 or something, and then left, and then did the same thing on Friday. I'm assuming that was for Arts, Beats, and Eats, I assume. So again, he was told to stay within that time, so you can imagine, like, that I'm kind of worried about it, because giving him kind of carte blanche hasn't worked thus far.
We only make the ordinances here. We don't actually do the enforcement.
No, you mean as planners?
That's another department.
There is a department for that. He's not saying the city, but.
But you would
I see your point.
expect that a business owner would follow their own site plan.
Right.
I mean, that's where I'm at. And so I'm very cautious, and I'm very concerned still about this, because it's my health. It's not anybody who lives anywhere else. This is my health and the health of my family. And so this is of great importance specifically to me. And yes, I am only one person out of 10,000. But to say that the smoke isn't going towards my house is just absolutely, it's ridiculous. That's a slap in the face as far as I'm concerned. I've been a nurse for 20 years. I deal with high integrity people usually on a regular basis. And that's not what that is. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a clarification
Sure.
before the rest of the public comment. Hi. In the original site plan, if we could just pull it up so we can, there's one part that says after the ordinance, after the 2 days, it said with the addition to, because I know I put something else in there, with the addition of catering event, isn't that, or with the addition of other events? It does state that. I did put that flexibility into it, so I understand that there were uses that were outside of the 2 specific days, but it wasn't a complete violation other than not expecting that amount of smoke or cooking time. But if we could please pull that up, I think that
That's
would.
in the original site plan.
That was in the original site
We
plan.
went over that.
Oh, it does say that. Okay, I just
We
want to
went
make.
over that, it just wasn't approved.
Maybe for this,
That part wasn't approved of the
Yeah,
original.
the wording of the
thing.
motion is where the actual site plan is approved. So normally we'd put that into the motion as well. You had 2 days of operational, and what we didn't do in that original motion was add for special events.
Okay, so can
So
I
that's
clarify for myself really quickly? The original site plan that was sent, that wording specifically was not the site plan that was approved. There was another site plan on top of that after this.
Well, we approved, when we make a motion at the end of site plan, we motion to apply certain aspects. So the motion that was approved was, and that we voted on, was the days a week, the movability of it, the markings, and the times. So that motion did not include the special events.
Even though it was under the time portion of it.
Yeah, we don't necessarily do an all or nothing.
Okay.
You know, there is flexibility in improving certain aspects of that.
Okay.
I did rewatch that meeting, but I don't recall that part being.
Specificality in there, and I think that
And
was
I don't think
something
it
that
was
was
discussed
blurred.
a lot during that, but it was not approved during that.
Okay, and I think that there might have been a little bit blurred during the, past couple of years, because that was, we were going
You
off of
were
that
understanding
originally.
that,
Yes,
yeah.
that was my understanding from being a, new business venture, so just wanted to clarify that. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. And we have one more person from the public?
Hi, my name is Simbi. I live on 86 Jefferson Avenue, so I'm a stone throw away from this restaurant. And this is my first time actually understanding the problem. So I was just wondering, is there like a specific part of the process, maybe the beginning, that is a little bit smokier than the rest of the smoking process, that maybe we could control, like when they start, so that you can kind of control the smokiest period of the process?
That seems to be the most difficult time, starting out.
Right, it is the most, so if we can kind of control that period, because in restaurant business, you have to be flexible, right? You can have a slow week and a fast week, so you kind of need to have that flexibility to be able to smoke at a moment's notice almost, but if we could control when you have to start that smoke, right? So if you don't start by this time, you can't smoke on that day. Just thinking about that. And then the other thing I was thinking is potentially if they can grant flex days, understanding when big events are coming up. I don't know if there's a 1 month period, like we know that there's Thanksgiving, so I might need an extra day that week. Christmas is coming, might need an extra day that week. Ohio State, Michigan's coming up, I might get a day that week, right? So maybe giving a little bit of notice of the extra days that are needed for the smoking.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what we're considering, that's what we're discussing. And, I mean, theoretically, if you took this grill and you fired it up with propane, you have less smoke to begin with, and if you kept the fire going forever, you would eliminate most of the smoke problem, right? It's because you have to shut it down once in a while and fire back up again, so that is causing more smoke there also, I think. But we have to be careful with the hours. I don't want to smoke the neighbors out.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying, but if we know when, we kind of control.
There's just
when
not
we have
someone, I guess this is just me saying, I don't think that there's someone in City Hall that necessarily has a job to keep record, and it does, like, and I really don't want to over police either.
Yeah.
I would love the flexibility to be able to feel confident in saying, do it whenever. I hope you get more catering. So I just don't think that we'd be able to accommodate that and fulfill that from a city standpoint. I don't speak for administration, but it seems like it would be a hard job that we just don't have someone working
I understand,
there
that's just
yet.
my thought.
But
And then-
we always welcome opportunities to try to bring creativeness to our thinking, so,
And
yeah.
then just the final thing, just from the outside looking in, it looks like there's been an improvement in the last month that is being compared to years of smoking, and we kind of need to see if this less smoke that we're now getting, give that a little time to see how much of a difference that really is making.
Mhm.
I agree. That's where we have our fingers crossed on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else in public?
Stephanie Koval. I've been here before, I've talked before. I don't want this to be a huge issue. Your business is great. I think that's evident in what people have said and the signatures that you've got. And
I don't mean to interrupt, ma'am. Mr. Becerra, as you know, the conversation should probably.
sorry. I think the restaurant is wonderful. I'm not gonna look at you, but I'm talking to you. I think the restaurant's great. I think people love it. That's not really what's at issue here, right? The smoke is what's the issue.
Right.
I agree that by moving it up front, we notice a difference. And I like that location. I think it should stay up there. This is the first time hearing about the propane start. So I think that that's something that I need to pay more attention to, right, to see if that does eliminate or alleviate some of the smoke. And I think the gentleman who mentioned, if the smoke is the worst at the startup, maybe we monitor when that startup occurs so that it's not as intrusive or affecting the neighbors as much. That's a possible suggestion. And I know that there's nobody at the city to monitor this, but maybe that is something to take into consideration when we really do finalize usage times, is that maybe there has to be a clause for certain times of the year that may be busier for him, such as Thanksgiving or Christmas. Those times of years personally are colder. I tend to not sit outside during those times, and I don't open my windows. So, I don't know that I would notice it as much. But again, I think that, some of the people who speak in support, it's great. But again, those people either don't live in the city or don't live directly in the line of the restaurant. And I don't want to see the restaurant closed. That's not my goal. That's not my reason here. I really think that there's got to be a way that we can come together. And I really like the discussion that's happening tonight, because I think that, if we can get some times and then test it out over a period, that maybe we will notice that it's not as intrusive as it once was, and that maybe then it does open up more. Or maybe we don't think that that's the case, and then we revisit again, what are the, times that it is needed and, to sustain his business. And it sounds like there is some growth, which is great, but it also sounds like there was a lot of confusion at the start when it opened, and then all of a sudden, the business is locked into being able to not shut down and take whatever they can get. I don't know what happened there, but we are where we are today, and we've got to make it work. And I know we all need to work together. And I appreciate each of you for taking the time and listening, and the research and the conversations that have been had. I thank you for that. I thank you for being here and being in the city and all that you do, and continuing to work with the neighbors. It's really not personal, and I don't want you to take it that way, because that was some of the best lemonade I've ever had at your restaurant. That's all I'll say.
The lemonade?
Okay.
No, I'm kidding.
Amazing.
Ooh, it sounds good.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public? Can you come to the microphone, please?
Hi there. My name's Justin. I live on Charlevoix, so within the city limits. I moved here in 2018, and there wasn't really a whole lot going on, to be honest. In the 6 years we've been here, we've seen multiple restaurants open, but we've also seen a lot of restaurants close. And my fiance and I, we both love House of Barbecue. It's the best barbecue in Clawson. Sorry to any woodpile aficionados. And it's actually got one of the few places, my fiance is vegan, one of the few places that offers multiple vegan selections, oddly enough, for a barbecue restaurant. And everything's delicious. And I've listened to a lot of people talk, and I've listened to all the things that the chef said he's done. As far as, you guys have said he needs to do this, this, and this to mitigate smoke. And he's done those things. He's moved his grill away. He's moved to the propane start. And it even seems like, even from some of the initial negative feedback, that it has turned much more positive. So I just would hate to see this restaurant close too. And I think it would be a terrible message to other restaurants that are looking to move to Clawson to see, like, hey, this other small business couldn't survive. What chance do we have? So from the optics, from, Clawson continuing to grow, I think it would be a real shame to restrict their hours. I don't think they're asking for unlimited barbecuing. They're just asking to be do it as they need. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in public? Seeing none. Oh, seeing one more. Last guy.
Hi, Nate Hara, 413 Clawson. Thank you so much, Commissioners. I don't envy your task. It's a very difficult situation to balance the peace and contentment that neighbors have when there are businesses nearby. And I was part of this board, I think, when we unanimously approved this experiment to try this barbecue establishment. And I really was enthusiastic, and still am enthusiastic about that business. And it's a shame that this smoke is an issue that's clouding the circumstance. I think this is a technology gap, and I really do hope that we can come outside of this meeting, outside of ordinances, just come up with something that works, that takes the smoke out of the equation completely so that they can barbecue and deliver their product. I think the big change is the catering. I think that there's not enough business in Clausen to sustain his business, so he has to do catering to support the business by offering it. But unfortunately, he has to smoke all of the meat in Clausen to sell it to Royal Oak, to sell it to all these other cities. And so this is sort of an interesting, I don't understand if I can buy property in Clausen and do business like for export or for domestic consumption. It's a nuance for that particular type of restaurant site. So I hope you can consider this in the future so that this is clear not only for the residents that live near that business, this is not necessarily barbecue specific, but for also the businesses that are coming to that site, that they're not surprised later on that they can't do an export business or a catering business. It has to be clear from the very beginning, and I think that was the intention of the Planning Commission at the time, was to be, open to new ideas and to help anybody survive economically, but also be a good custodian to the neighbors who live by. And obviously there is a conflict here, and there are so many variables that is making a clear answer to the question, is it better enough or not? And it's weather dependent, it's propane dependent, it's you could go on, it seems. And a clear database decision seems impossible at this moment, unfortunately. But if there's anything I can do, Collier, please, I'm going to stay. I'll give you my number. I'd love to help you engineer a solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in public? Seeing none at this point, I will close the public discussion part, and I will entertain a motion.
Well, can we have discussion after all that discussion?
We can
Or
further
just
discuss. You can make a motion. We can
commissioners-
discuss before or after the motion.
Well, maybe just, let's do the first factor. I kind of made notes here. So do we agree that naturally we have the 2 days currently? Do we want to expand that to 24-hour operation?
I would think that we kind of have to.
We're just talking about how he's cooking brisket, et cetera.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
constricted even by the original site plan.
And I can appreciate and I do trust that there may have been a lot of confusion going on at that time, especially coming out of pandemic, opening a restaurant, you got kiddos, I get it. There could have been confusion. Of course, I do want to make a point that we had no part in any type of back and forth until you got here at that meeting, so we didn't know about all that. But I think that it's important that we allow, like, that's a majority use on that grill. In my opinion, I do think we should open up to 24 hours.
And then the other discussion we had was the 1 to 2 flex days, given that option for the special event. And I think we have some ownership in that, right, because it was originally in their application a few years ago. And by motion, we didn't include that in the site plan approval. So again, also, and just a note is it going to be a permanent allowance or have a conditional allowance to let them demonstrate that the solution's been done, right? That I'm a guy, we've had 3 weeks, that's not a trend, right? We have to have sustainable performance for smoke impacting the neighbors, because that's what the commission's responsibility is, the well-being and health of our citizens. So I'd rather see, maybe make some changes, but then coming back in 30 days or 60 days with those new conditions and get feedback from the residents and see if that's really improved it.
The other concern, though, is the time of year, right?
Yep.
Because between now and 60 days from now, it's probably going to be far less impactful to the residents than it would have been in the middle of the summer or the spring, right?
So yeah, you're going to have seasonal impact, right? So at least that's my notes. So we're talking about the 24-hour expansion, providing 2 to 1 days of flex operation, but also maybe having somewhere where we can just kind of circle the wagons again from the residents' viewpoint to see if that's been effective.
Yeah. Well, I would agree.
The flex days is a tough one for me. It's a little bit too much. It's too much of a variable to really at this point in time to really quantify. I would be open if you had a set of particular days in mind. Maybe you have some events coming up that maybe we grant, flex days on a scheduled basis. But for this motion, asking for three flex days is just too much of a variable. So I think starting off with expanding the hours to 24 hours, and then coming back and revisiting, possibly another day or another set of flex days.
So what we're doing here is we're not going to be approving the applied for site plan, because the applied for site plan wants pretty much unlimited timing. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to try to make a motion that we're going to allow them to carry on with the grill moved to the new position. Hopefully the propane tanks will work. And if you want to extend the hours to, you want 24 hours for the 2 days that are currently allowed? Is that where you would go with
Is that where everybody's going? I mean,
I'd be comfortable with that.
So we're pretty much staying with the original site plan. We're just modifying it a little bit.
Moving the grill and expanding the hours of operation to 2 days of 24-hour use.
We'll modify that part, but we're not going to go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're
Not at this point.
not going that route. So I would entertain a
I mean,
motion to that
do
effect.
you have any particular days, any major events that are coming up that you'd like to propose to us?
It's the
I mean-
addition, you can answer that, but also the catering that's done within, a lot of catering is done within Clausen, and I think there's a disconnect between the.
Oh, you got to come to the microphone. You can't hear you.
I can't say when someone's gonna come in and ask me to cater. That's the thing, that's the reason for the flexibility. I have no way of knowing. I can't guess that, because what if they come in, if I say, let's add Thursday, and then they come in, or no one comes in Thursday, but they come in Friday, and then I don't have that day, Saturday, to cook. You see what I'm saying? That's why I need the flexibility. Let's let that go, and let's see how it goes, and then go from there. But if we're not allowing it to see how it goes, we go completely dead in it before it even gets done. That's not allowing room for growth. You see what I'm saying? If we give it the time, the 2 months or whatever, and she doesn't call in and complain about it, or she comes up here in the next meeting and says, it's been great, we had no problems, then let's work from there, but not completely shutting it down when we right here trying to move forward, Even if it don't have to be 3 days, it could be one flex day, not putting an actual stipulation on that actual day. You know what I'm saying? Giving me the power to say, okay, I'm going to use this flex day on a Saturday because I got a catering event on a Sunday instead of not being able to cook. You understand where I'm coming from?
So I totally do. And
it could be one flex day. That just gives me the power to say, oh, somebody just called me. They want 1,000, want me to feed 1,000 people. I can say I'll do it, the day before the event, and that's my flex day. Not saying power to cook all the time, You understand where I'm coming from?
I do. Just trying to meet middle ground again here. It's much easier as a body for you to come back, and as we test it, and give you more days or discuss it. It's more difficult if something doesn't work to restrict something that's already been agreed upon in writing, right, and approved. So, again, trying to reach middle ground, I'd really like to test out the expansion of time and go from there. And I understand the position you're in. But we also have to consider all the other issues that we've talked about.
Definitely.
And one of my thoughts, if we do grant you by vote an extra day for special events, then I would like to also see a commitment that you only use those days. Because historically, that's what some of the displeasure of the citizens around you is you are going outside that windows of operation per your site plan. So I'd like to have, that's going to be my consideration. If we do vote and give you an extra day, then we adhere to those days and no outside the box type of activity. Would you live with that then, if we vote that way?
Yeah, that would be fine.
So are you saying that you would like to put a specific day on there or allow them that flexibility?
Allow them to have that flexibility, but if we say one day, I don't want to hear the citizens coming back and saying you've been cooking for 7 again.
Right, or, well, and it
Exactly.
does get hard, like you said, I do think it's hard to kind of put a measure on there, because it's
would-
like, well, what day does Sunday start
Yeah.
the week, does Monday start the week, because they could be,
I
and
would-
I don't want to, I don't want to be the police of the,
No,
you know,
I
the
would-
barbecue.
I would also ask that they could please give me a call, because some of those days I have not been smoking. Give me a call. See if it's me smoking, because some of them days it's not me smoking. Somebody could be in their backyard smoking, you know, and just because you smell it, you think it's me. Like, give me the opportunity to show you, hey, look, I'm not smoking, you know. That's all I ask, you know. I mean, granted, yeah, I told you guys that I was cooking from Wednesday to Thursday. I did not go over that site plan. I never looked at it again. After that day, it was just like I was so happy to be open and ready to rock and roll, because I had lost so much money. I put my whole life savings into this, you know, and it was, you know, I was drained, you know. So, yeah, that's all I ask. Just give me a chance, you know. I understand how frustrating it is for everybody, but I initially, like I said, I am the one who initially put my foot forward to move the grill on my own, move the grill, put the money up to move the grill. Coming to you guys trying to figure out a way to do it. I've been putting all my money into this, you know, seriously. I have no problem with that, but give me a call. I'm right here. I will, hey, yeah, it's me smoking. You know, this is my flex day I'm using, you know. That gives them the opportunity to say, okay, yeah, well, he's operating under the guideline, you know.
Yeah.
That's all I said.
So you're extending an olive branch of, hey,
Yes.
just give me a call, I want
Yes.
to, yeah, and of course, that's always appreciated. We can't regulate that,
Right.
and I know you know that.
Yeah, I'm just
but,
saying it so they understand.
So they
that
hear,
I'm
yeah,
here.
yeah, and that's a very neighborly thing to do.
So that's just my thing too, because the original application had that special use request, right? So to stay in the spirit of the original site application. So that's my thoughts, but again, we'll have to vote on it if we decide.
Yeah.
You want to put that into a form of a motion?
Well, I don't know if
What
we're
is
on a
the motion?
consensus.
Yeah.
I mean, either of you, we can all make motions, so anybody can make a motion at their will. Unless there's
So
commissioners that
we
would
talked
like
about the
to-
24 hours, so it looked like, just from the nodding of the head, the consensus of the original site approved days, that we expanded to 24 hours, right? Do we want to put any timing that we want them to return in a set amount of time for effectiveness of their actions? You know, because they have the propane, they've moved the location. Does that have to be in the motion, Nick?
I'm sorry, what was that?
We're just testing you, Nick. So,
A test period is, should we have establish a length of time for a test period, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks?
To eventually add more
yeah,
time to it?
so if they can get the smoke under control, then naturally that lets them expand their operation. But for me, at least, they have to demonstrate they have sustainability, right? That they're going to, these efforts will make a positive impact to the community. So can we put in the motion that if we expand hours and whatever, they need to return to us in 30 days, 60 days, so we can then look at the number of complaints if we've had any, and then so we can make a decision then.
Yeah, I think you just need to make it explicitly clear when you want that to come back in front of you.
Right. So we're just giving him a temporary.
Okay. And the last thing, you know, so I'll just be vocal. I'd like to see in the motion to allow a one special event day or a flex day, whatever we want, the terminology for, at their discretion to use. And then, again, they can return and see if that works.
Would that be a 24-hour day as well?
It sounds like it, right? Because you really box yourself in with that very tight timing, and I'm not a barbecue guy at all, so, but we should be realistic. Let's rewrite the ship. You know, this is all water underneath the bridge, so let's have a very, much better detailed plan so we don't have these misunderstandings again, right? Okay.
Yeah, well, I agree, and I support. If that, was that in the form of a motion, or?
I can try, right?
Well, because I would just like to add maybe a little bit of clarity on one other thing. The small smoker, I think it would be in the best interest of everybody that if we're not using it, that it's not there anymore. I don't know if there's a garage, or if you I don't know what you plan to do. If you plan to sell it, keep it on hand for events, like you said earlier. But it does sound like that's something that you can store off-site, just so there's never any question about whether one or two is used, or which one's used, or which one's not. Are you amenable to removing the?
I am, as long as, you know, the owners, if we put that into motion, that the small smoker, when not in use, has to be not at the location of the restaurant.
So we're storing one, right?
One only,
Also, parking, it helps, right? Because we're limited there.
Yeah, you can make that addition to your motion.
Can I amend your motion for that, Tinlin?
He needs to make a motion first.
I just want to see how long we can have a planning commission meeting go, like.
Till
Okay.
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
This is going to be a new record.
So Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we expand the House of Barbecue's current site plan operation hours to 24. I add that we allow them to have special use 1 day per week at their discretion. And then when the small smoker is not in use, it's not stored in the restaurant location. And we'll have a conditional review of those changes within 30 days. And Nick, you'll have to help me when the next planning commission meeting comes open.
Be 2 meetings away then, right?
And if I could just maybe clarify that the days, that 24 hours, so it would be with the approved site plan from last time, I believe it was Sunday starting at 10 p.m. and then Wednesday starting at 10 p.m. So just make it very clear in that motion what days that 24 hours would initiate.
He did give us times that I can insert there.
Okay, I just, again, want to make sure everything's very clear.
Make sure it's in
Okay.
the motion.
So we got everything right this time on this motion, right? Okay.
Okay, so he said from 10 a.m. on Wednesday till 9 a.m. on Thursday. And I believe the Sunday was Sunday 8 a.m. till 9 a.m. Monday. Is that correct? Or are you doing, yep? Yep, okay. And then the flex day, we could abide by those same hours on that flex day? Yes, okay. Can I amend your motion? Do you accept?
Yes.
Not
Okay.
yet, support. Now you can amend.
Okay.
And we have a motion, we have support, and you support it with her.
Nope. I supported the original motion.
The original motion was at special use once a week
Yep.
at their discretion.
You're supporting that motion with additions?
Not yet, she hasn't made her addition.
Not yet.
Okay. Can we amend your motion to include specific times Wednesday from 8 a.m. till Thursday 9 a.m., Sunday 8 a.m. till Monday 9 a.m., and a flex day following an 8 a.m. till the following day 9 a.m. schedule?
Yes.
Yes.
And removing the grill is in there too.
Removing the grill was in there originally, I believe.
Okay, we all,
And again, it's the planning commission's purview. I'd probably add in the motion that it'll be a propane-powered smoker as well.
Propane-powered startup, right?
Yes, startup.
Yep.
So you need to amend that too then.
I would like to amend our motion to also include a propane startup to the grill.
Yes.
Yeah, I still support.
we don't want you cooking the ribs on propane alone, you know.
And Nick, I just want to make sure, I'm sorry, but we already put in there the moving from the back to the front, right? Was that included in this motion?
It was approved last time.
So we don't have to revisit? Okay.
I would just add it in this motion now.
Sure, yep. Can I amend the motion to include that we are moving the grill from the back up to the front where it's already at? I like your signage, I like your fence, to keep all those there
I
as well.
support the change.
Still support.
Yep.
Okay.
Still support, okay, so we're all good? Good, Debbie? Can I have a roll call, please?
Okay. Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Tinlin?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Colbert?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. Nushai?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Redmond? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, we're trying to work with you. Hopefully this will work out, and I think I'm going to see if I can do some research, or maybe the city will, into the health department, because that still amazes me, you can't cook it someplace else and bring it in. That would cure our whole problem right there.
Except for his neighbors at home.
And looking at some chimney options. I know they're expensive, but
We'll still hear him.
And, you know, I just want to make one more comment, Mr. Chair. You know, because we have a lot of observation of what smoke is when it happens, I would strongly recommend that you put a webcam up in the location with an uplink to digitally store 24 hours a day, and then you have objective evidence for us when you come back saying, hey, of all these days, here's the smoke. Just a recommendation, you can get a web camera for $40 and web storage, and if you've got internet at your restaurant, that'd be a nice way to demonstrate to the commission with evidence that this has been solved, right? Just a recommendation.
All right, thank you. Welcome to Clausen again. Hope you stay here. Agenda item. We'll move on to agenda item number 8, which is a site plan amendment application for 172 West 14 Mile Road. Might take a minute for people to clear out.
Gonna give this a moment to clear out.
Yeah.
Love your shirts. Love your shirts.
It only took an hour and a half.
All right. So 172 West 14 Mile, this is probably best known colloquially as the former Burger King site. So there was an approved site plan for a 3-story building from October 2023 here. It had residential on the upper 2 floors and then commercial on the ground floor. The applicant has kind of been, I guess, running the numbers on construction, and they are returning to the Planning Commission to ask permission to phase the project so that the first floor and the grounds would be constructed and completed without the second and third floor initially. And then there would be a phase 2 for the other 2 stories. In our understanding is that they're saying in 2 to 3 years, but we'll let them talk about what they think about the time frame. So again, phase 1 is the ground floor commercial spaces and all the site improvements. So the parking lot, the landscaping, all that stuff would be done in phase 1, and then the second and third story would be phase 2 when they're ready to do that. Final project after both phases is proposed to match what the Planning Commission approved in 2023. So, one of the things that we know is that there's some, history with phasing site plans here. So that's one of the reasons that I'm trying to emphasize that the entire grounds is part of phase 1 here. Because the other time we did that, the physical improvements to the grounds were included in phase 2, and that was what created the problem. So, essentially what you have is you have a complete site at the end of phase 1 that can be granted a certificate of occupancy, and then when they come back to do the construction of phase 2, they're using their existing parking lot as a staging area and then getting certificates of occupancy for those other 2 floors at the end of that phase.
And they want to do those all at once, the second and third?
The second and third
Okay.
floor, they're anticipating that they would do those at the same time when they came back. So, how does this work with the previous approval? You granted conditional approval to the full plan in October 2023. That plan, with the revisions submitted after PC approval to comply with the conditions of approval, is still the controlling approved site plan for the whole site. The phasing request breaks out the first story and ground level improvements to do first. And then, like I said, you get the C of O for that. And then when you come back, staging occurs in the parking lot, 2 additional floors constructed on top of the building to the originally approved plan. And then you issue your Cs of O for those floors. And that's upon completion of both floors and any necessary restoration that might need to occur. So if a construction equipment damaged the rear parking lot, that would need to be repaired to a like-new condition for a final C of O to be issued for the upper floors. If they knocked a tree over, when the construction crew was on site, they'd need to replant that in order to get their final C of O.
Do they come back in front of us for, even though it's a conditional approval, will they still come back to us for a site plan at the beginning of that phase 2, or no?
What I would say is that if they do it in the time frame that they're saying now, they probably wouldn't have to, unless they made changes to what they think phase 2 is going to be. If phase 2 changes, they have to come back for an amended site plan. But if they're following the time frame that's agreed to tonight, then I don't think they would have to come back. If they change the time frame, that's another thing where they would have to tell us that they're changing the time frame, or if they just decide never to do phase 2 and they just leave phase 1 in place, that's something that they would have to come here and say, well, look, we're not going to do phase 2 now. We're just going to leave it at phase 1.
Well, the site plan has a shelf life of a year, right? And unless they're working on it, that extends it if you continue to do something.
Right, exactly. If you're earnestly working toward completion of the site plan, that will extend your approval.
Do you know if they hold, because on certain land uses, the city does hold some type of retainer? Does that apply to this type of thing? Like
a bond, you mean, or something like that? Well, if they finish phase 1, they have a completed site plan, or at least like a completed functional site, right? So I don't know that there's necessarily something that you would require a bond for in that. Just because
it's a complete project.
Yeah,
Would the work be done on the same permit?
they
Or
would have to
apply for
they'd be getting another
completely new
permit. Yeah, they'd be getting another
So,
permit for phase 2.
Theoretically, there would be a new bond.
A new, for
Right,
the
yeah.
second phase,
New
right?
bond on it.
Right.
Right, okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things I noted up at the top of the letter, I have a little section number 4, has anything on the plan changed from the original approval? So from a proposal standpoint, the short answer is no. The proposal is intended to be identical, but there is a longer answer there. The plan does need a handful of revisions to match the original approval. And I've laid out what those are. So there were a couple things with the landscaping, particularly the number of trees that just did not carry over from the original plan. They switched architects. So the new architect had to kind of redo the plan, the original plan, and there's just some things that don't match. So I've called those out here. The landscaping. Lighting was submitted post-approval. The lighting plan wasn't compliant with Section 518 at the time. We do need an updated lighting plan that complies with the ordinance. Fixture mounting heights along the northern property line is the primary thing there. So those are going to have to be lowered from what's shown on that plan. Bike parking had been added to the final plan after PC approval, because that was one of the conditions to meet ordinance standards. That's not shown on the current plan, so that has to be added back on in the original location. And then there's a driveway connection to the east on this plan that's not in the original approval. That's got to be removed from the plan. I think that was a misunderstanding on the part of the architect that there was going to be a connection, but there is not a connection there, and it was never approved. So that has to be taken off the plan. There are also, the engineer noted them in his letter, so I didn't bother repeating them, but there are some like numbers, setbacks and things that were on the original plan that should be added to phase 1 of the phasing plan. When you scale them out, they all match the original approval, but we should have those numbers on that plan as well. So that's an informational item that should be added. So those are the 5 things that we're calling out as there need to be some revisions to what we're seeing here to match the original approval. And then I guess if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we do have the applicant here.
So now that there's a significant amount of glazing being taken out of the front to meet our requirement, now that they're taking out the second and third story, does that, now that, are they compliant with meeting the glazing requirement on the main floor?
Yeah, the glazing requirement really applies to the main floor. It's between 2 and 8 feet above grade. And when we looked at the elevations, we saw that that was still compliant for the ground floor, yeah. So taking off the upper floors doesn't actually affect their compliance with that standard.
Okay.
Good question, though.
And Joe, you did mention also about the screening. During phase one, because they will move mechanicals eventually to the third
Right,
floor
yeah.
roof instead of the
Yep.
first floor roof.
Yeah.
So that wasn't pointed out as well, right? Like that we would, I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
it was more of a, if the parapet for the first floor screens things effectively, then that's what we use for the screen. If not, then we need additional screening to.
So it's just a question we need to ask.
Exactly,
then.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the second and third floor are a different use, right? It's a mixed-use building with commercial on the ground floor, apartments above, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can see on the floor plans that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the service area that eventually would serve the upper floors is on there to be built in phase one. And the stairwells are also on the floor plan, so they'd have all that in place for when they add it on. It's just that the stairwells just lead up to the roof at this point instead of up to a second and third floor.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's helpful to know, yeah.
Yeah, third floor has the, what, 10-foot setback, or?
Yeah, the third floor is required to have the 10-foot setback. They actually had the second and third floor setback on their, on the
Oh.
originally approved plan.
Okay.
Yeah, both of those floors were setback.
Any further questions for Joe?
Yeah, and they're not looking to amend, I mean, obviously, there's the landscaping, but the green space, the building print, the envelope is the same.
Yeah.
The garbage enclosure, like those things that we look
Right.
for on a multifamily building are all still existing within the site plan.
Exactly.
And
They
it's ready to accommodate that use.
Right, yeah, they
okay.
still have the trash enclosure and the loading space. So the trash enclosure, which serves the whole building, including the upper floors, and then the loading space, that's all in that indoor area in the back, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
okay.
that is being built as part of phase one.
Do you know if the applicant is here, or, oh, okay. Yeah.
Do you have any questions for the applicant?
I mean, I don't know if they wanted to come talk. We usually give them that grace. Do you want to speak to any of the screening, or do you know answers to the screening? Not to put you on the spot, but.
Whatever I know. Good evening. My name is Marella Plumai, and I'm the owner of the former Burger King, and hopefully to be the owner of multiple businesses that we're planning to build soon. So I'm very excited for this project, and we'll see where this is going to take us. As we planned, we're planning first to do the whole thing, the whole project. But after we dealt with our bank and stuff like that, they don't want to get themselves into the mixed-use building, which we're okay with that. So let's do this first so we can open the business and start generating more money, and then we'll go from there. And we'll continue with the second phase.
Okay. Do you know if you're, do have you spoke with your architect? I don't know if you guys had a conversation about those things that we kind of addressed at the beginning with the bike rack. I mean, is it something that you know of that might be an issue with, requiring those to be a part of in amending that new architectural plan to include those things?
As far as I know, everything will remain the same, like landscaping, all the floors will stay as first got approved. So nothing will change, except we're gonna end up doing it in 2 phases. That's all it is for now.
Okay.
As far as like the impact on the city in terms of water and sewer and storm, are you planning on developing that to fit as if it was the 3 stories? Or are
Yes.
you scaling?
No, everything will be built as it's gonna be 3 stories.
Okay.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion then.
Well, I do want to get clarity, I guess from, I don't know who, but I don't know if we should make our motion to include a specific type of screening or leave that as, open to admin overseeing and approving. Joe, can you help?
Are you,
Yeah, the rooftop screening, since it wasn't specifically addressed, and I don't expect her to, no.
I think you
Not an
could say
Yeah.
that you ensure that the rooftop units are screened per ordinance. And
Per
then-
ordinance, you said?
yeah, that is a general ordinance, so it would be enforced regardless, right?
So we can then, work with them on what their method is. If the parapet covers it, then great. If it doesn't, then we can have them put some fencing up there around those units.
Good with that?
So was there a landscape missing too?
Yeah, there's, and I don't know, I believe that it would be okay with Nick, sorry, you can sit down if you want, I don't have more
Doesn't
questions,
matter.
but thank you.
Okay.
Nick, would it be okay to reference these, that we amend the original motion or amend the original site plan? I guess I don't want to make it too complicated.
Well, I think their intent from the start was to develop this building exactly how it was intended to be done from the first time. They just simply want to phase it out. And so, like Joe mentioned, I think there was just some miscommunication between the architects switching back and forth. So their intent is, from what we understand, is to do everything as was approved back in October of 23. So in the motion, I would recommend stating that the changes that Joe identified from landscaping, lighting, bike parking, and the connection to the east that's shown, which isn't not supposed to be there, are identified in your motion, that it's approved contingent on the architect supplying those to staff to be approved.
Okay, so I don't need to include that we're amending the original site plan to this site plan then, right?
Correct.
Because I didn't want to amend.
No,
Because that would
you're
get
just
complicated.
approving
Okay.
this in
Yeah.
front of you with
Gotcha.
the phased approach, yes.
Gotcha. Okay. I will make a motion to approve the site plan for 172 West 14 Mile Road with the architects including the original bike plans, providing an updated lighting plan. Let's see, sorry. They need to address the landscaping as well as ensure that there is rooftop screening. And lastly, to follow the guidance on the engineering plan and comply with the original engineering plan as well.
So second.
Do you need me to call out those specifically, Joe, the engineering stuff? Or no?
No, I would just specify somewhere in the motion that you're approving the phasing as
Oh,
proposed,
sorry,
right?
yes, of course, yes. I thought that was part of the site plan. So we, I'm sorry, I don't want to start all over. Approve the separating of phase 1 and phase 2 of that site plan as well.
Still support.
Still support.
Yes, sir.
And do we have to add any information about a bond on this? No, that's taken care of? Yeah. Okay. So I have motion, I have support. Any further conversation before we call a roll? Seeing none, I'd like a roll call, please.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Colbert?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. Nushai?
Yes.
Ms. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Tintland?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 9, it's the site plan application for 1238 Anderson Court.
Right. Anderson Court is a cul-de-sac street with a bunch of small industrial and office development off of it, off of Crooks Road over in the BRD2 district. This is the site at the end of the cul-de-sac on the north side. Like I said, zone BRD2, business renewal. The sites around it are zoned BRD2 as well, except the sites to the east, which are zoned R2. There are 4 residential lots that directly abut this site. They all have homes on them. So the applicant's proposing to add an accessory building to the site in order to shelter 2 company vehicles. It's 22 by 30 feet, 660 square feet, open at both ends. It's going to occupy 2.5 parking spaces, and it's a frame structure with a kind of black canopy over it that would be bolted to the concrete. We looked at the dimensional standards of the BRD2 district. The BRD2 district, this is on the east side of the site. BRD2 district has a 0-foot side setback. One of the things that Nick and I noticed when we were reviewing this is that there isn't a special side setback if the side property line happens to abut residential. So the 0-foot setback actually applies there. They've got it 1 foot from the wall that goes down the property line.
Joe, there is a setback requirement for an accessory use from a residential though, right?
Well, no, not really.
I thought there was.
So when you have an accessory building like a garage or something in a rear yard, there's a setback requirement for that. But we've got the dimensional, strictly speaking, the principal building actually could be, we got to fix this. This is something that I've earmarked to do something about this, because the principal building, strictly speaking, could be 0 feet. The way this ordinance is written, there are only 3 lots that have a side lot line that abuts residential in the entire BRD2 district, and I think it was overlooked for that reason. When the district was originally developed. But strictly speaking, the principal building could be right up against that property line, the way this ordinance is written.
In which ordinance are you referring to? The BRD?
I'm referring to the BRD2 district, yeah. Because really what it needs is, it needs a separate standard for a setback from residential. So that we don't wind up, if one of these sites gets redeveloped, we don't wind up with a principal building right on the property line. So that's on Nick and my radar to bring you something on that. In the meantime, we have this 14-foot tall accessory building, again, open at both ends. That's being proposed a foot from that wall. And again, it's to shelter a couple of company-owned vehicles. The loss of 1 parking space, because it takes up 2.5 parking spaces, doesn't actually affect the site's compliance with parking requirements. They have excess parking. The screening wall that's required is in place. The site doesn't have a green belt or buffer like a lot of the older sites over there. So when we look at landscaping, it's all in the front yard. The site is non-conforming with parking lot landscaping requirements. There's not any new lighting proposed here. It's access from Anderson Road via one driveway off that cul-de-sac. I put a note in about exterior facades and finishing. The standard is written primarily to address primary structures, but you can consider whether the appearance of what they're proposing meets the compatibility goals of the BRD2 district. And yeah, otherwise, if you have any other questions, or
Sorry if you said this, but the canopy itself it's a fabric material that's an okay, is it? I see him shaking his head no. I don't know if that's the applicant, but he's saying no.
Well, let him
it's
come
not
up and talk,
it's not
Ben.
a
I
fabric.
may have mistaken.
What, sorry.
Hello, I'm Keith Alberti, the owner of the business. Moved to Clawson a couple years ago and very happy to be in this town. Love this meeting and I love all the enthusiasm and passion about the House of Barbecue. I can tell you what, I'm hungry and I'm going to go check that place out for sure. So what was the question? Sorry.
I was asking what the material was for the canopy. I asked if it was fabric. I saw your partner shaking his head, so that's what initiated this.
It's metal. It's steel.
It's metal. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
And there's already one existing there. There's a white one that's already there, right?
There was one there. There is one there, yes.
I drove by yesterday and I looked
Yep.
at it and it was already there. Is that staying? Is that coming down?
I don't know yet. I haven't decided on that one. I just got to, first things first, I want to get this one taken care of.
Okay.
So the entire structure is a metal or a steel product?
Correct.
Okay, there's no flammable parts whatsoever? Okay.
It's done the right way. The company that does it, it's a fairly expensive structure. It's sound,
Okay.
for lack of a better description.
Bolted onto the concrete, stay where it's at.
You have it proposed at essentially the lot line, right? Sorry, I'm into this accessory thing here. It's proposed to be right along that line. And you're going to have two vehicles pull in there as like a pull-through kind of thing? They're just protecting it?
Park there. I want to protect them from the snow and the elements and stuff like that. A couple expensive vehicles that I purchased and makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
Like I said, I drove by yesterday. It looks good. What exactly are you guys selling there? The place
Looks
before
good.
you
We've
were
been there for
making-
2 years, and we put a lot of money into the place. I tell you, I love the city of Clawson. I really do. And, we're trying to get more involved with, you have beautiful park, beautiful neighborhoods. I love the downtown area here. Really happy to be here. We put a bunch of money into the business, and I think the building looks great. The street looks awesome. We're really happy.
The previous company was there making water storage containers, I think. They had
Yeah,
huge
seems-
plastic
Yeah,
tubs.
they were steel containers and stuff.
I never knew that they moved out and that you moved in. I was surprised.
Yeah, I think they moved up to Auburn Hills. They outgrew the space.
Okay. Any further questions?
No, I don't.
Anything? Nothing? No. Motion? No. Anyone?
All set with me?
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sorry, I closed my thing out.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion for site plan 1238 Anderson Court to be approved as presented.
Support.
Motion support. Any further comments? May I have roll call, please?
Mr. Colbert?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. Nushai?
Yes.
Ms. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Tinlin?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 10 is consideration of the short-term rental ordinance amendment.
Right, this is kind of an informational one. We gave you the language just to make sure that we didn't miss anything, that it was correct to, agreed with what the commission decided on. And if you see any issues with it, please let me know. If you didn't have a chance to look at it before the meeting and you look at it after this and you see an issue, let Nick know and he'll tell me. But if you don't see any issues, then we'll move forward with this language at the public hearing. If you do have issues, like I said, just let us know and we will make the necessary changes.
The public hearing is in October, right?
Pardon?
right.
Public hearing is in October? what is
The
it?
the public hearing was originally supposed to be the first meeting in October. It had to change to the second meeting. And we're going to have a pretty big first meeting in October in terms of the agenda. So it is actually going to be the second meeting in October for the public hearing.
Do we have to re-motion that? Or we're okay?
Did the original motion specify? Okay, yes, I would have another motion to specify the second meeting date in October, which is the 23rd.
Says here.
Yeah. 22nd, actually, right? Yeah.
22nd.
Yeah, 22nd. Yeah. But otherwise, this should match what we agreed upon last time.
Well, I have a question, and I don't know if the city attorney is here for this specifically or not, but does he feel like it is strong enough to, how does he feel about the ordinance? Has he given us any feedback on it? If there are issues that we might need to be addressed that we're leaving out or anything like that?
I have read it, obviously, good evening. I have read it, obviously, any consideration based on what you approve will go to council and they'll take it up there. So it's not so much that I have any issues per se or in any way, shape or form, negative or positive. They'll just simply go to council and they'll debate it and they'll take it on from there.
Oh, okay, so you don't,
Yeah, it would be, I wouldn't want to curtail any conversations that you had, any consideration that you had. I think, whatever you present is exactly your work, and I think they'll work.
okay.
So we have the public hearing scheduled already for the 22nd.
It was originally the 8th, so we have to change it to the 22nd. And then, yeah, that's the only thing you need to do tonight.
So that's all we need is a motion to
withdraw.
approve the date change.
Do you want us to, I think he wants us to motion to accept this language as well, right, Joe?
Well, we
Or is it
already
not
had the
pre-specified?
motion to set a public hearing, and if you change the public hearing, it's implicit that you're okay with the language.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll make a motion to change the public hearing for the short-term rental ordinance from, I guess I don't have to say, till October 22nd.
It was October 8th to October 22nd. Yeah.
October 8th to October 22nd.
Support. Okay.
Further discussion? May I have a roll call on this, please?
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. Nushai?
Yes.
Ms. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Scott? Yes. Mr. Tinlin?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Colber?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 11 is discussion of the planned unit development ordinance language.
Yeah, Nick included the PUD language in your packet. The reason this is on here is that this is what we're going to be talking about on the 8th. We have a planned unit development application in for the former Shalom School site. It was requested that we just discuss the PUD ordinance and the process this evening, just so that everyone's kind of aware of what that is before we get into discussing an actual PUD. And I mean, I guess the basics here is that there are two major phases of a planned unit development at the planning commission level. One is determining whether or not the project qualifies as a planned unit development, and we have eligibility criteria for that in 3.1S1D. So there are 4 eligibility criteria. And the Planning Commission and City Council have to find that the proposed development meets those 4 criteria. Those criteria are recognizable and substantial benefit. Planning and development shall achieve a higher quality of development than would otherwise be achieved under conventional standards and shall result in a recognizable and substantial benefit to the community and to the ultimate users of the developed site. 2 is availability and capacity of public services. So the proposed type and density of use shall not exceed the capacity of existing public services, facilities, and utilities. We have the engineer comment on that. 3, consistency with the master plan and zoning ordinance. So the proposed development shall be consistent with the goals and objectives of the city's master plan, the purpose of this zoning article, and the intent of these planned unit development regulations. The intent precedes the eligibility criteria here, so you can actually read the intent statement at the very beginning of this section. And then 4, economic and neighborhood impact. So the proposed development shall not impede the continued use or development of surrounding lots for uses permitted by this zoning article or planned in the adopted city master plan. So that's, those are the eligibility criteria. And when they first come in front of you with, it can be sometimes it's very fleshed out, but it can be a conceptual plan at that point. We discuss those eligibility criteria and we essentially qualify them to come to us with a final planned unit development. Redevelopment does have a special note in the ordinance on the very next item. Any development that includes a site designated as a brownfield by state or federal law, redevelopment or reuse of a functionally obsolete building, or removal of a non-conforming use or structure may qualify for consideration as a planned unit development.
Joe, for the qualification of number 2, it's kind of tough for like us to make a judgment on. I know you said that engineering, they're going to be providing some notes, but is there anybody internally in the city, DPW, police, city? I mean, will they have comment as well?
Yeah, well, DPW is actually the group that my brain is failing. It's 9:46. Engineering works for DPW. Your engineering consultant works for the DPW.
But they're going to have more of a recommendation than just, our infrastructure is, compatible or capable. It's more of a,
right.
Maintenance and streets and whatnot, all that goes.
Right, and also they're looking at whether or not stormwater capacity that's being proposed on the site is going to be adequate to manage the stormwater that's going to be generated by the site, et cetera, things like that. But yes, DPW is involved in that engineering review.
But public services expands more than just utilities, right? It's also potentially.
Yes, which is
I'm
we
not
also
speaking to
have
anything.
we also have fire and the police comment.
But
on
also,
these plans,
does traffic
too.
apply to that as well? Like the ability for, something to be handled with traffic flow and, sorry, Nick.
Yeah, that is a public facility. A road is
Yeah,
a public
okay.
facility.
They did do a traffic study for what
Oh, I
they're
wasn't
doing.
meaning Shelm at all.
I'm just saying in
Okay.
general, for
Oh,
your
okay.
just education for this site, that will be provided to you as well. So.
But yes, roads are a public facility. Absolutely,
Right,
yeah.
so anything that is a community use is something we consider it during this portion of it?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, there are, of course, regulations that are apply to a planned unit development. And I mean, I don't want to go through all of them because obviously I don't want to keep you here all night, but the application procedures under subsection 4 is something I did want to touch on, just so that we kind of all, and I'll put this right in the review letter like I always do. when you're looking at the plan next meeting. But, what are the stages that we go through? So the pre-application conference, which is where they have to come to the city and talk to us and the engineer about what they're planning to do. Then there's conceptual review and qualification, which I already went over. If they get past that, then there's a public hearing. Then the planning commission makes a recommendation and city council takes action. If they have to get any county or state approvals, they would do that prior to going to city council. And then if city council approves it, then there's a signed development agreement. That's mostly Rennis's turf, because he's the one who reviews the agreement and makes sure it's all legally copacetic. And then at that point, they're into full engineering review and developing the site. Is there anything else we want to touch on or talk about?
Well, Joe, I know
tonight, or-
PUDs are a hot topic, right? So
Sure.
what I'm hoping from this is a great document, but what's our lane from a planning commission? So we can just focus on those elements and not get into the weeds on things that are really not our
So
responsibilities.
up front, when you're working on that conceptual review, you're determining eligibility. So you got to look at those 4 eligibility criteria and make sure that it meets them. You have your PUD regulations, which is subsection 3. So we've got to make sure that they meet those regulations as well. And then finally is a plan unit development. A recognizable benefit is part of it. And if you are the ones who are charged with deciding whether or not there is a recognizable benefit, right? So if you're not seeing one, then that's feedback you have to be giving to the applicant. If you are seeing one, that's something that you need to be, putting on the record. And if there are, we have wide latitude to place conditions on an approval of a planned unit development. So if there are conditions that spring to mind during the conceptual that might affect the design of the plan, that's feedback that can be given to the applicant at that time. I really don't think we're going to approve X is something that would come up at that time, So you're probably going to want to look at redesigning that by the time you get here to final.
You're saying at that first initial meeting that we should be
at
pointing those
conceptual
out?
review, you can point that stuff out. You're not necessarily going to catch everything at the
Right.
first time. When they come back, if you didn't comment on something the first time, it's not like you can't comment on it the second time. But nevertheless, that's a really good time to say, look, there are things about this design that we're not comfortable with. We would like to see some changes on this. And then when they come back for final, hopefully they've made those changes.
Is there a particular reason why they're going for a PUD rather than R1? Or what is the?
Well, I'd rather not talk about the specific development that's coming to us at this meeting, because I'd rather have them here for that conversation, because that's probably a question that they are best suited to answer.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but so they're the ones requesting the PUD. It's not just the correct vehicle for this
Yeah,
project.
exactly. It's always up to an applicant to say, plan unit development is the way I'm going to go with this.
So Joe, does it typically, so in our past, we've typically had, like, it's in this zone and this zone, but we're asking for this zone to be applied there. It doesn't seem to be like that is a criteria that it has to meet to apply a specific zone or a specific ordinance to it, right? So there can be the possibility of, hey, we're just in this zone and we're going to ask for these variances. Am I understanding that correctly?
Right, and the intent and the hope is that in asking for deviations from the standards of the district that they're in, they're giving you something in return that makes it worth the city's while.
Right, and it's like, we couldn't have that there unless we were to do this, right? Like,
Exactly, yeah.
you know, a better use of development.
The Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, in establishing the ability to do a plan unit development, specifically calls out a couple of purposes, and one of them is to permit like innovation, you know, because you can't predict everything in a zoning ordinance. So that's one of the things that the legislature was trying to enable when they put planned unit development out there as a possibility for a zoning ordinance. You know, there are all kinds of reasons to apply for a PUD, you know, and again, it comes down to, is the trade-off of what they're asking for outside the typical parameters of the ordinance adequately compensated for by the benefit they're providing? And that's really like the key question.
Yeah, well, and I've read examples of a PUD, maybe this isn't exactly it, but I thought a good example was like a ski lodge where there's multiple uses within, like there's a motel, there's a restaurant, there's all these different uses. So in order to accommodate a plan for a ski lodge, you kind of need a PUD to have that flexibility.
Sure, yeah.
It doesn't seem like that's the way it's come in front of us, but of course we have no room for a ski lodge. But like, you know, just in that way of, you know, so it does feel sometimes like it is a bypass of ordinance, right? I think that's obvious.
Yeah, I mean, well, in the absence of Mount Clawson, I guess we're never going to get a ski lodge. But no, sometimes very large projects like that are done through planned unit development.
I mean, I'll take a roller rink like we talked about before, but, you know, maybe we can negotiate that. And, you know, something I do feel like, you know, in our future, since we're talking just about PUDs, I think that, I know you've honed in on the benefit because I agree with you. I don't think that we've focused on that enough. And I don't think that we've asked enough from developers. Like, we have the ability to ask for a benefit, and for one that is a community benefit. It's not, you know, a commercial place inside the building. It's where all community, like a little pocket park or something, right? Like those are typical what I think of when I think of a community benefit. Sure. I also don't think that we've used or employed, and I know it's not written necessarily in our ordinance, but I know that the Michigan Zoning and Enabling Act does allow us to require a certain amount of open space, which, as we're talking about things in the future, I think it would be nice to have that, especially if it's going to be used in a mixed-use way where nobody has room to walk dogs outside their own establishment kind of thing.
Mr. Chair, we're like 3 minutes away from 10 o'clock. Do we need to extend?
I'll just make a motion that we'll go on for another 20 minutes. We probably won't need it, but does anybody have a problem with extending for 20? I'm sure we won't use that time, but, okay. I don't think we have to roll call that, do we?
I think you could do that by acclamation.
Yeah. So there's not, Joe, there's not a way that we can require that necessarily at this point of open usable space because it's, I mean, I know our ordinance says that shall contain at least as much usable space as would otherwise be required in the underlying zoning.
Which, depending on what the underlying zoning is, that could be a lot or very little. I mean,
and it also can vary because they're mixing. Typically, they're missing different uses, so it seems like it's a cherry pickable thing.
Well, it says underlying district, so I mean, if it's CC, you really don't have to provide any. But if it's, you know, pretty much any other district, you're going to have some that you need to provide.
So, if there was a specific PUD that came in front of us that partitioned off pieces of property, and it wasn't one single owned property any longer, how would it be each parcel then, right? As in each parcel is a usable space, or?
Well, so unified control is actually one of our requirements for PUD. So you've got to have unified control. The whole thing has to be under single ownership. There has to be one entity responsible for completing the project in conformity with the PUD regulations. As far as if the property gets broken down in the future, the PUD agreement has to bind all of the development successors in title to the commitments that were made as part of the PUD. So you can transfer ownership or control, but the city has to be notified of that, and then those successor owners have to abide by the planned unit development agreement. So anything that you were allowing to happen on that site, they actually have to come in with an application to amend the planned unit development agreement if they want to change any of that.
So does that agreement run in perpetuity with that land? So
exactly.
So
yeah.
do they have? So essentially, it's an HOA.
But more or less, it's similar.
Yeah.
It's similar. It's like similar to a master deed and bylaws. The thing that would terminate it ultimately is redevelopment of the property. So you now have something different there, and the planned unit development would go away at that point.
So if a HOA was enacted there, how does that work with city services? I mean, I don't know. I mean, would the city still be required to maintain
the roads and
all the
stuff?
roads
Yeah.
and garbage and
any
refuse?
Any road that's dedicated to the public would be the city's responsibility to maintain. And the same would go with any other infrastructure. So if you had pipes under the ground that were put there by the developer, but then given over to the city would also maintain those. If you had, for instance, private roads, which is not very common in cities, but out in the townships, over in Macomb County, the Department of Roads won't accept any more roads, so everything's a private road. That is solely going to be the responsibility of the HOA, and what you find is that down the road, the HOA can't afford to do it, or its members aren't willing to vote to spend the money, so they wind up going to the township and getting a special assessment, and it's kind of a big process. But yeah, it's strictly speaking, those roads are the property of that HOA if they're private.
So theoretically, if they were to put in, let's say, alleys, would those be treated as a private road or a public road?
It depends on whether or not they're dedicated to the as public alleys or if they're private property.
So as dedicated as a public, they would have to grant the city a right-of-way?
Exactly,
Like a utility
yeah.
would?
Yeah,
It would be essentially operate that way?
Yeah, well, a utility might just be getting an easement, but it would be public property if you were dedicating it to the city.
So they would have to do that within the plan if somebody was ever to want to do it
Right, it
that
would be
way.
part
Okay.
of the overall process of building, as they would be dedicating right-of-way to the public. That actually happens as part of site plans, like let's say you have a planned 120-foot right-of-way and the actual right-of-way is only 100 feet wide, and somebody's doing a site plan along that road. This happens, I see this happen on Farmington Hills a lot, because their right-of-way plan is planned to be a lot wider than it is in a lot of places. So the city says, well, all right, you're doing a site plan there, can you dedicate the rest of the right-of-way? And they'll actually dedicate some of that land over, and it is no longer private property, it becomes part of the right-of-way. This is the same thing, it's just with a whole road instead of just a portion of the planned
Gotcha.
right-of-way.
At this meeting, will they be presenting a tentative site plan?
Yeah, they're going to have some sort of at least concept plan, yeah, so. Yes, there will be a tentative site plan.
And we also have the option, just to clarity, we have the option to vote yes, no, or come back, right? Like, it's
That's
not a yes or
true
no, make it or break it. We
That's
can always.
true of anything, really. Yeah,
Mhm.
you always have the option to approve, deny, or postpone.
Yeah, and take feedback with them.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it is their discretion to be able to postpone certain meetings as well during these processes, right? If there's a certain number of planning, I forget what the rule is on that, for the developer to come back?
Yeah, they do have a certain amount of discretion there, yeah.
Okay. Is it based on how many planning commissioners there are here, or I forget?
Well, that could be one potential reason. The other could be that they feel that they have, a lot of revisions to make or something, and they're just not comfortable with a vote that evening. They say they want to make revisions and come back. They could request postponement at that point.
Okay. I have one last question, I think. After it leaves us, I know that you said it goes, and I'm not going to get off topic, Tinlin, I promise. But you said it goes.
Being quiet right now.
It goes to council, right? If at that meeting at council, there's a lot of changes, what triggers, because I thought that we had in the past had PUDs that came back in front of us for a site plan revision, but I'm confused by when that's triggered and when it's not, just a general question.
Gotcha. So any approved plan unit development where they want to make a change to the site plan or some other aspect of the development agreement does have to come in for approval of that change because you're altering the approved PUD. As far as if it gets to council and there have been changes made to the plan after it left the planning commission, Rennis, I might tag you in here a little bit on this one. So there might be a couple circumstances under which the plan changes at that point. The applicant could take it upon themselves to make a change, or council could request a specific change. Do you think there's a difference between those two circumstances?
Yeah, we would lend on the former, not the latter. So
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. is
it
if-
has to come from the applicant. It cannot be something that we necessarily mandate with very minor exceptions, and those exceptions we almost don't want to test most of the time. So.
Right. So, I mean, if they decided they were going to make a bunch of changes that no one asked for, it'd probably wind up coming back here. If the council requested changes, then that's between council and the applicant, and that probably would not come back here. It'd be for council to be making a final determination on.
Okay.
Anything further?
All right. Good to have this discussion now, and then everybody's kind of like already there when we're talking about a specific plan.
I think it's good to have a
so-
discussion, just a refresher.
Sure,
Before one comes up each time.
Right, yeah.
Just
Especially a PUD, they are so complicated and can be a lot of nuances to them. Yeah.
Okay, do you have a planner's report?
That was pretty much it right there.
Okay, then staff report and training opportunities.
I'll try and keep it short and sweet. So by the end of this week, I'm going to send out an email to everyone again, just reminding everyone the link to the Michigan State Citizen Planner course. I know it's been a while since I verbally said something to you. It's been linked in my staff report for as far as I can remember. So I'll remind everyone where they can access that document or that training opportunity, and then if they have any questions on where to go with that. Additional training opportunity that I had in there is the Oakland County Community Development Department is hosting a planners gathering workshop related to short-term rentals. That workshop will be held on October 23rd at 10 a.m. I do have a link in there where you can register for that. So if you want to register on yourself, please feel free. If you would like me to register for you, I can do that as well. And
do they have any recording options of those? I mean, it's Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the morning. So.
yeah, I recognize that. I planned on reaching out to them to see if it's going to be something that's recorded and that they can share with their communities. So we've got a planning commission meeting before that, actually 2 of them. So I will try and get that answer for you by next meeting.
Thought I heard they were working on an asynchronous version, but I'm not sure if they've
Yeah, I believe they are, and if not, as long as they're okay with it, I might be able to record it on my end as well, but I definitely want to get their approval for any of.
Yeah,
any-
no, I
any of that
understand. It's
happens.
just, that time isn't really convenient for a lot of people.
I understand.
And Penny might be able to answer that. I reached out to her, and that's why she's thrown this back at us, because I'm interested in anything for short term.
Yeah, I got an
Yeah,
email, I think, end of last week, early this week about it, and wanted to, obviously would have had to been last week when this was sent out. So I just wanted to share that with you since we've been talking about it pretty extensively. And then I just wanted to remind everyone about the webpage on the website for developments. And so I don't know if anyone has had a chance to look. So whenever we get a site plan application, it's on that webpage. So it's under the Building and Planning Department. And it's the last piece right now. It just says Development in Clawson. Currently, there's 4 drop-down menus for site plans, variances, general things the Planning Commission reviews that may affect the public. So we can get the plans there as well in the packet, because I know sometimes minutes on demand can be hard to navigate for the public. And so if we just have a webpage for site plans, I felt it was appropriate to make it more accessible.
I like that, Nick. Can I ask a question?
Fire away.
Do you know how long sometimes I want to reflect upon one that's a couple years old. Will they in the future be accessible for that amount of time, or do you know?
And that's where I'm kind of unsure on, because I would love to have all the site plans on the website. So if someone in the community wants to go and look something that was approved 3 years ago, they can. I just don't know how much storage that we can keep on the website. And I guess to be determined. For right now, I don't really plan on taking them off. I might, relocate them. That way it's not clogging the top of it where we have our fresh site plans coming in. So I guess maybe right now would be the answer, but
You're
the
at least
intent.
considering it, and
Yeah,
okay,
definitely,
cool.
definitely.
Thanks.
And I think that's everything unless anyone else has any questions.
I'm good. Thank you. And do we have any legal update?
Mr. Kucera, members, I think it probably makes perfect sense in light of the conversation that Joe just had with you. As you know, council, our charter, council by way of ordinance, as well as your bylaws, state that Robert's Rules of Order apply to this meeting and all meetings. As you have certain site plans coming up to you in the near future, and of course, as far as the eye can see, it's important to follow those rules. Tonight's meeting is one that we probably need to exercise a little more care, and we need to do so in the future. Now, I know, Mr. Kucera, you're an expert on this. You've been on council. You've been in the chair for a long time. You know that we cannot have discussion without motion on the table. I think we need to get back to that. It's important. You know that conversations back and forth with members of the public, we can't have that necessarily either. A lot of different aspects of our site plan reviews become simpler if we can engage with the community, of course. So there's a natural tendency to want to do that, but we can't do that without taking on some legal risk. So I would ask you, particularly as we move forward, to start exercising care in the way that we do this. Otherwise, it was a joy to see you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from anyone? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I just have a question for Joe. Joe, do you know, do you feel after the earlier first site plan that we should put an ordinance together? Is that something that you're already thinking of and you feel like we can address in the future?
I'll work on something for you. And
Okay.
It probably won't be next meeting, but yeah.
For sure,
At some
yeah.
point in the next couple of months, we'll.
Okay,
we'll look at something.
okay, cool. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion support. Can I have roll call, please?
Mr. Tinlin?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Nushai?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. Colbert?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.